What is up, everyone? What is up? How's everybody doing? It's been an interesting day. Well, so I did pass my, second class for my bachelor's already, so that's some good news. The only annoyance is I have to go get a letter of accommodation for my ADHD and everything. The reason why it's such a pain is I have to go to my actual doctor, had to schedule an appointment, but then I found out the testing place that did it didn't send my documentation over, so I had to go and make another HIPAA transfer request, and doing this before they technically even get my stuff, so hooray! So hopefully they'll be able to do everything I need to do tomorrow so I can get back on track. I'm trying to finish as many classes as I can. My lofty goal is to be able to knock out this bachelor's by the end of this term, which is around June. It's a little bit of a lofty goal. I've got 22 classes remaining, but I think, what is it, like the first 15 or so of the like 24 or so that I was looking at were all basic IT stuff, at least to me. Like, the fact that I've knocked out 2 of these classes in not even 2 weeks should say a lot. So far I've done, like, ethics and technology, and what was the first one I had to do? Oh, intro to IT. And then the funny part is, the class I have to take after this class that I'm taking right now, which is intro to prompt, the guy who has been on stream showing how to use AI and build your own LLMs, or at least LLM servers, has to go through an intro to prompt engineering class. It's annoying because, you know, I have to, like, do all the things the formal way they want to do. But then the other funny part is the last class I have to take after this one, I have to go take my CompTIA A+ test. It is going to be really interesting having to explain to people. So how did you get around this? Well, I started with my associate's degree, went with a total of like 15 years, like even include like several years into this before I got my associates. That I was like 3 or 4 years into the career when I got my associates, but I've been in the field 15 years, got my CISSP, then decided to get my bachelor's, then I had to get CompTIA Plus, and then get all these, like, it's gonna be a weird thing to explain, like, the weird rotation I had to do with all of that stuff. I'm probably not going to be, maintaining the, I think they require you to have fees, for, what is it, the, CompTIA stuff. What the hell just happened to my TikTok stream? It went dirt for a second. I don't know. TikTok's being weird today. What's up, Govy Cat? But yeah, so I'm probably going to maintain the ISC squared certs because I have my CISSP. That's the more coveted one, I guess you could say, than the CompTIA one. At least I can say, hey, I had it, and then I let it lapse. And then I'm entertaining the idea of going for my master's just to say the hell with it, if I end up getting the bachelor's and just knock that out. War crime stream, burn down the city. Burn down the school. Burn it down, burn it down! Chief is one of those gifted kinds of autism. So I haven't been diagnosed yet. Eventually, I'll want to go and get diagnosed. Though I may wait until, what's-his-face is out of office, the one that wants to throw us into, the concentration camps. I mean, when you're ADHD, it is very hard to concentrate, especially when you're in a camp. Did you pay a lot of out-of-pocket at a WGU? No. So WGU is actually pretty cost-effective. I think it was $4,600 a semester, so effectively for a whole year, you only are paying, what is it, like $9,200 give or take for the whole year. So go for 2 years, you're about $20K. So I think it's really cost effective. Like, honestly, it's about the same price as my local community college. But the difference is that I don't have to sit there in classes. See, the part that I hated about going to college was you have to sit there even in the classes that you actually knew the thing for, but you couldn't test out of for whatever reason, for like 10 weeks. Whereas this, I can literally just go, all right, I know this, cool, take the test, done. You ready for the next DEF CON? Well, I already got my hotel room booked, so yeah. Chief has an Abby normal brain. No, it's Abby Norma. If you're gonna make that joke with young Frankenstein, it was, whose brain was this? Abby Norma. Yeah. Oh, and I think my Tickfinity was off because I just saw some gifts go through and they didn't, alert. There we go. Now they should go off. But yeah, I mean, WGU is alright. The thing I will tell people, though, don't just go to college first and think that you're going to get a job. Go get a basic entry-level job. Go get a cert, maybe, or two, if you really need to go down that route. Then consider the degree while you're basically working. And I think WGU at least has a reasonable approach for working people. But with that being said, I think the largest fallacy that a lot of people have as someone that is already in the field for like 15 years, has a CISSP, and is now going into a bachelor's program, is that a lot of the lessons that I've at least had for these past couple of classes aren't really all that pertinent or relevant. And I was peeking in at some of the other curriculum and stuff like that. It's very surface level, which is fine, but you need to also have that spirit of home labbing, because that's where you're really going to understand a lot of these concepts. And as I tell a lot of people, when you're wanting to go into cybersecurity and IT as a whole, or really any career, you need to be willing to devote time in your own personal time to improve your craft. It's not that kind of job where you can just punch in and then when you punch out, you're just done for the day. When I finish, as you know, I'm not only making content, I'm studying new things, I'm building new things, I'm working on, new concepts and ideas, and it's very important to do that, because I know quite a few people that have actually, IRL, co-workers, things like that have asked me, hey, I've been at help desk for, so many years, what can I do to get out of this? And it comes down to, you got to level up your skills. You're only going to learn so much while you're on the job, especially in an enterprise atmosphere. The reality is that in an enterprise, when you go to work for a job, yeah, you have stability, but you also basically have blinders on because they're going to limit you to what you can actually do. And while a lot of you will be like, well, that's fine, I'll just go above and beyond. Don't do that either, because then people will take advantage of you. If you work in a small business like an MSP, a lot of these managed service providers have like 5-10 people. You then wear many hats where you then support each other. You get a lot of exposure to different things. You may not get paid that well, where a lot of people don't really want to make it a career, but it will help you level up because thanks to my managed service provider life, I had access to, as many of you know, not just the hardware side with Windows, with servers and desktops, but I was deploying networks, pulling cables. I was, doing a little bit of everything, from the small side of people that were as small as one person in a business all the way up to like 400 people in a line. Are they super strict there, like deadlines and stuff? Not really. So it works at your own pace. Now, they ideally do, like, they basically set, you get assigned what they call a mentor, which is more or less your counselor. They check in with you once a week. That's actually why I was a few minutes late. I was speaking to my counselor, mentor, and I was talking to them because they saw that I passed my second class, and they're like, yep, you're doing exactly what you said you'd be doing, which is that you're gonna go really fast through a lot of these entry classes. And, was just telling them that I have to go get that reasonable accommodation letter. That way I can at least do testing a little bit easier, because I do read and speak to myself very often. It's just a mechanism that I've been, using as little tools for me to stay on track when I'm ADHD and studying and things like that. Have to be able to speak out loud, read my questions, and reason to myself sometimes out loud. Basically they just give you like more of a soft deadline, and I was telling him, hey, with this coming up, I don't know if I'll possibly have that letter, but just in case, he moved my expected pass date to complete the class by a week further. So as long as you're completing classes and, logging in, and, they can't tell what you're doing when you're logging in, but that you've logged in and that you're, opening the lessons and stuff like that, they're not going to harp on you nearly as hard. What's up, Kilobyte? How's it going? A few ads. I need to see if there's a way to disable ads for the mods. I thought I disabled that, but it is what it is. Anyway. But yeah, so far it's been a pretty decent experience. Like I said, I'm basically just doing it to get the paper. The advantage I think that WGU has, though, for a lot of people, is you do at least walk out with a bunch of certs. So for someone like me, it's not as important because I already got my CISSP. I will take that voucher that they have for the CCSP for sure. Apparently that's one of the ones you walk away with optionally, so I'm going to take advantage of that. But I'm going to be, I think, walking away with the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Project Plus, I think a couple others as well as part of it. So I think overall, considering if you were to take WGU and you go for 2 years, it's a pretty good value. That's probably the only reason why I would say if you do want to, start working in the field, maybe consider them, because at least it's 2 birds, 1 stone, but yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely a lot of pluses there. I think let me put it this way. Do I think that, college should be a requirement to go into this field? No, absolutely. I didn't really have a 4-year degree, as you've seen, doing this. But if you have to be required to get a degree to break through ceilings like I'm trying to do right now, I think WGU is a pretty good value. Taking my business statistics and peering into the human brain. During our exams at ASU, we can't even speak out loud due to AI policy that can be voice activated. What the hell? Yeah, well, apparently what I'm asking for is one of the very, very basic, simple, reasonable accommodations that a lot of people with ADHD or any kind of neurodiversity ask for. Even my counselor was like, yeah, that seems pretty reasonable what you're asking for. You're not asking for any special software to be used. You're literally just asking for the ability for you to read out loud and reason to yourself. And I'm in a room all by myself. They already have you do the scan around for the camera and everything like that. But yeah, it's interesting. You look much better. Yeah, I was not feeling good for the past few days. I was not 100%. What distro do you use? I use Kubuntu. I use Pop OS. Loved my WGU program. Lots of certs via the cyber program, and it checks the HR box for a degree. That's exactly why I'm doing it, because I'm getting rejected from a lot of job opportunities despite having a CISSP, and I'm sitting there like, you're not even really examining my resume the way that they used to. So I have definitely noticed a huge shift in how companies are, because when I was on the job hunt 4 or 5 years ago, before I got my current job, I had interviewed for like 5 or 6 different jobs in the same amount of time that I've been applying for different jobs right now. The fact of the matter is that I only just now have my first request for an interview today, and I'll be taking that this week. Just blows my mind. No one's really reading resumes anymore. They're having AI run through it to look through a bunch of keywords. And to prove that point, one of my buddies works at another place. He's trying to get me to work there. He saw that my resume got rejected because HR was looking for keywords. He told me to send my resume over. So I sent it to him over Signal. He printed it out, dropped it right in front of his manager and director, and is like, this guy got rejected. And they're like, what the hell? Why did he get rejected? Like, the exact words that he told me were, it would be easier to say what this guy doesn't have experience in. And they can't figure out why HR rejected me. So they have to go through and, pull my resume out and all that. But of course, the craziness of it all is that the manager that has to do the hiring got a better job, so everything's up in the air on that particular position. Got rejected for no reason. I was way more than qualified for a job I applied to. That's how it is. That's how it is, honestly. Did my TikTok die? God damn it, TikTok. You're not catching up with the chat over here. I'm gonna restart the stream combination thingy. Because for some reason it was not playing nice with TikTok. TikTok is always the most finicky platform. I will say that. TikTok needs to get their crap together. Alright. Yeah, so I already answered the distro thing. But yeah, I've been using Pop! OS for years. I like it. I haven't moved over to the Cosmic Desktop Environment one, but yeah. I'm playing FNAF NES right now. It's actually a NES game. What's FNAF? I don't know these acronyms. I'm old. Wish there was closed captions. Can't listen now, but Linux all the things. Yeah, I need to work on getting a closed caption system into this. There's a lot of things I want to do with my streams, but I only have so much time in the day. Oh, Five Nights at Freddy's? Interesting. I do have another job opportunity that's going to possibly be coming up, but that's not till Q3, Q4, so right now I'm just trying to bide my time. If this job works out, great. If not, I still have a job right now. I just am not happy with a lot of the toxicity and BS that they have going on. And most importantly, they are underpaying me and talking about going return to office. Well, not talking about, they've said they're going to. Probably like end of year, early next year. And I'm like, F that! I'm not doing that! I don't know about I don't know what Calyx CPE is. Unless it's something else, I haven't really remembered much. Alright, let's pull in... And I'm waiting for my memory to come in for my new Firewall. Because the old memory I had seems to be going bad. So, that will be here tomorrow. And, then maybe we'll be putting together a Firewall. Hooray! Okay, so yesterday we talked about, was it CXMT, the Chinese DRAM company. So we're going to be doing something else. Okay, we're going to have to bookmark this for later, the Risk Wars. It's a little bit long. Don't get me wrong, I like Asianometry. Actually, why am I not subscribed to them? I like Asianometry. Do not get me wrong. The problem is... their videos are, like, very in-depth for our streams, and One of these days, if I ever have, become unemployed and can actually do a full-time stream, because being a full-time content creator, basically unemployed at that point. That's a joke if you haven't realized that. But I would totally be into this. Maybe one day I will retire, lofty thinking, and I can just be a content creator all day long, and then just go to tech things. Still master-slave terminology? I mean, some things it just exists. It's how it is. Like, you go to an IDE cable. It's just there. Okay, so ternary computing. Oh yeah, so ternary is a really interesting thing. So everyone here is probably familiar with binary, zeros and ones. Well, what if you actually used 3 different digits instead of 2 to actually control it? How can you tell if RAM is going bad? Well, so usually you'll have random errors, like on Windows, it'll be crashing. Linux can have kernel panics and stuff. Linux handles memory issues, I notice, a lot better than Windows does, but it's not completely fault tolerant, okay? Bad memory is going to lead to issues. You'll get corrupted data because it has to get stored in memory and then write it. But the best way to confirm it is if you get a Linux Live CD, any one of them, really, they usually have a tool called memtest 86, I think it's 86 plus. Run that on your machine. It'll take a couple of hours. Just run a, full pass through it. If it fails any of those tests, your memory is bad. Or in some cases, like with my CPU for a while on an old BIOS version, it didn't like the XMP profile, so I had to manually set the clocks for it and all of the voltages, and then it would, stabilize the memory and everything, but, it's been fixed in later BIOS revisions, so it is what it is. But yeah, I'm using RetroArch, which is built into Lutris. Okay. Interesting. I haven't really played RetroArch, but let's see, is ternary computing back on the menu?
Recently, people have been thinking about trits, and I don't mean the Costa Rican ice cream sandwich, meaning ternary, or base 3 compute, a 3-value logic scheme different from the 2-value binary logic scheme we are so familiar with. A few months ago, it made the rounds when news broke that Huawei patented a ternary computing circuit that can do AI.
Oh, really?
Ternary
Interesting.
logic has been explored for a long time, most famously during the 1960s in the Soviet Union with the Ceton computer.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that was one innovation that came out of the Soviet Union that never really caught on, though.
In today's video, a highly requested topic. We explore
seeing high CPU usage and GPU temps going up from first power on.
Theoretical pitch for
that may not be related to anything. May just be applications, maybe needing a repaste
format using a certain base. Here, base means the number of discrete states that each digit can represent. A binary digit, i.e. a bit, represents 2 states, 0, 1 or -1, 1. A ternary digit, i.e. a trit, represents 3 states, usually
sounds a little too close to something else.
Either a balanced ternary with states -1, 0, 1, or an unbalanced ternary with states 0, 1, and 2.
Interesting. I forgot it does a 0, 1, and 2 and negative.
The more information a base encoded digit can carry, so we need less digits for the same information. A 10-digit number encoded in binary requires 40 bits,
would a 4-state be a quit?
21 trits.
Good.
But higher bases also impose a resource and complexity
What's up,
cost.
Stabby?
So the theory goes that the optimal base is one that strikes the right balance between information carry and cost. Work that out, and you find that the most optimal number is the famous mathematical constant Euler's number with an efficiency of 0.368. The problem is that Euler's number is continuous, so it is impractical in reality.
Kind of just like pi. Off topic, what's the best cold wallet to get for crypto? In my links in bio, I have a link to the Trezor wallets. I like the Trezor. I personally have the Safe 3. I think for the cost, it's probably the best wallet out there. Has a secure element that's fully open source. So I completely moved to that from Ledger. Moving day 14. How many days have you been moving, buddy?
But base 3's efficiency is not far off at 0.366. By the way, binary's efficiency is 0.347, tied with base 4 as the second most efficient discrete number base.
So there's your answer, Stabby. Should we go with base 4? It's kind of interesting how that works off with the efficiency of, coding. Like, you don't think that's a lot right there? Like, 0.347 and 0.366, but percentage-wise, it's actually a good number.
So, in theory, a ternary computer can use fewer components to represent data, which then means a reduction in the number of wires to connect said components.
Oh, really?
Another notable benefit is that ternary has native support for negative numbers. Binary requires the use of an extra bit for that, which can be tricky to keep track of. It has also been argued that ternary logic is simple. For example, comparing 1 and 2 in binary logic takes 2 steps. First to ask, is 1 smaller than 2? And then, is 1 equal to 2? Ternary logic, on the other hand, can do it in just one step by just outputting less, equal to, or greater. And finally, balanced ternary just looks nice to certain types of people. Negative.
It looks so balanced and pretty. It's almost symmetrical.
1, 0, 1. I know Thanos would approve. The oldest known effort to produce a ternary computing device dates back to 1840. This was
I did not think it was that old.
A self-taught inventor named Thomas Fowler. According to a biography written by his son Hugh, Fowler produced a ternary mechanical calculator. This calculator was said to be easy to use and received some praise by the era's mathematicians. It was lost
mechanical
after
calculators
Fowler's death in 1843,
blow my mind.
but historians did a reconstruction 150 years later based on a detailed written description. A few ternary research studies were done in the 1950s in the United States. However, the most famous effort, and the only one that actually went into production, took place in the Soviet Union, the Seton. The whole thing began at Moscow State University in late 1955 because of a petty feud. The university was supposed to receive an M2 computer from the Laboratory of Electrical Systems in the Institute of Energy at the Soviet Academy of Sciences.
Isn't that how the best inventions usually get built? Well, fine then. I'm just going to make my own with hookers and blackjack.
However, the M2 computer team's lead, I.S. Bruck, disliked MSU's director, the Soviet mathematician Sergei Sobolev, because the latter had not voted for him in a previous academic election, so he blocked it.
What a cock-block move.
The MSU lab members consulted with Sobolev on what to do, and he simply told the lab to produce their own small general-purpose computer with an eye for eventual use in labs and offices. The student team began on Seton at the end of 1955. The name comes from a river in Moscow.
Really?
So far, so good. But how did Seton become a ternary computer? In the second half of the 1950s, vacuum tubes in the Soviet Union were not of high quality. Many tube-based computers of the day weren't being used because their fragile tubes kept shorting out. And while the solid-state transistor did exist, it had not yet reached the Soviet Union. While pondering this, the team heard about a colleague called L.I. Gutenmacher building a small binary digital computer called the LEM-1. Unusually, the LEM-1 used magnetic ferrite cores to do logic. These cores are small iron oxide ceramic rings. We can weave them together with wires and then magnetize them with pulses in one of two directions. The core remembers this direction until the next current pulse, making it useful for things like memory for early computers. Before semiconductor
that is really interesting how early computers work.
Quite popular. In order to maintain a consistent electrical load while reading out the cores, the LEM1 used a pair of cores to store a bit, one working core and another compensating core in the opposite direction. The MSU team modified this arrangement by making one of the compensating cores into a working core, so 2 ferrite cores to contain each trit. By that point,
I swear to God, he is so close to saying something that get an HR violation at a university.
Was certainly going against the grain. But to his credit, Supervisor Sobolev fully supported the wild project. By 1958, they had their first working prototypes. But then the State Committee for Radio Electronics declared the device unnecessary, without the right approvals, and tried
What am I
to
watching?
shut it down.
It's a video about ternary computing. So ternary is different than binary. It's from Asianometry. It's basically instead of a 0 and 1, you can have 0, 1, or 2. And apparently it's a lot more efficient. And I'm still curious why it's never actually come into the mainstream or really done anything with it if it's really that much more efficient. It's interesting, but yeah.
Arranged an official demo in 1960. After passing its demo with flying colors, a plant in Russia began production. 46 were made and distributed around the Soviet Union. The Czechs then came calling, thinking that they could make and sell the machine for a healthy profit.
You make money in Soviet Union?
In 1970, the team completed a successor computer called the Cetin 70. Its key feature being a structured ternary programming language. The computer also introduced the concept of a trit, a group of 6 trits, like bits to a byte.
That's interesting.
So just before the Czechs began large-scale production,
so 8 bits in a byte?
The whole Cetin effort was shut down. It was alleged that this was done by a Soviet official in charge of a competing binary
Money makes you in the Soviet Union, exactly.
In the end, the Cetin was thrown into the trash, and the team dispersed. In a fascinating 2004 interview, Cetin designer N.P. Brusentyov says that he still gets emails from researchers around the world interested in his work.
Yeah, why did they trash it?
That he always believed that ternary is superior to binary. He argues that ternary logic better fits the realities of nature. It allows for more nuance by moving beyond the simple yes or no. To him, binary's all-or-nothing nature deviates from human reasoning and creates unworkable paradoxes in thought. After all, only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Ha!
So, Brusentyov hopes that one day the world turns
Star
back.
Wars references.
Unfortunately, since Cetin's demise, binary has only continued to expand its grip on the world's computing paradigms. In 1973, several SUNY professors emulated a ternary computer called Ternac on a binary Burroughs B1700 mainframe.
Okay, but why?
The emulation ran at speeds similar to binary systems, leading the authors to conclude that ternary might be viable. The issue is that virtually everything proclaimed about ternary's benefits is in theory. There are very few practical examples of a ternary computer actually producing its promised component simplicity benefits. For example, Cetin designer Brusentyov has before claimed that his computer used 7 times fewer ferrite cores than Gutenmacher's LEM1 and had twice the processing power as defined by word length. But LEM1 only had so many ferrite cores for electrical balancing reasons. Moreover, using 2 cores to store a trit is inefficient, because 2 cores can also store 2 binary bits. 2 bits is more than the 1.58 bits in a trit, so one might argue that Cetin probably would have been better off as a binary computer. There are other reasons to
maybe it was just too ahead of its time for the components.
Translate to practicality. Doug Jones of the University of Iowa noted that a specific type of adder would be 62% more complex in ternary than binary, even after adjusting for the trit's additional data load. Moreover, people are just used to thinking in binary terms. Programming in ternary means asking them to rewire their thinking. Perhaps most famously, the query language SQL features 3-state logic with true, false, and null. Null means unknown or no value,
Right.
and many beginners struggle to grasp it, leading to errors and confusion.
It's not that hard. Go ask your local autistic person and they'll figure it out in a minute. And that's half this field. That makes sense to me. I mean, not everything is a yes or a no. It may be a maybe. It may be I don't care, which is no. But that's just me. Maybe it's that this thinking was a little bit ahead of its time. So they never actually could implement it in the ways that actually we could test it. Plus, if it was made in the Soviet Union, the issue is, of course, the Soviet Union, well, everything comes down to money. And a lot of things in the Soviet Union never really made it outside because of the Iron Curtain. So I'm pretty sure if we were in a different kind of world in history, ternary may have caught on a little bit more, because you would have had exposure to the worldwide academic community rather than only having it in the Soviet bloc academic community.
But the key missing part of the puzzle has always been the devices. Binary and MOS transistors go together like peanut butter and jelly. They're just two voltage states, and current issues aside, it's easy to tell between them. A ternary device, on the other hand, must reliably distinguish between multiple threshold voltage levels. And that's hard. Noise can mess with those levels, triggering stuff accidentally. And you need tighter control of the inputs, necessitating additional systems and hardware that wouldn't need to exist in binary.
Right, in binary, it's either on or off. Doesn't matter about the voltage level.
And ideally, it's on, be CMOS compatible. In the late 1970s, a team led by H.T. Mufta of Queen's University at Kingston over in Canada proposed a way to achieve the three levels using CMOS. In Mufta's setup, they connected both the PMOS and NMOS transistors to resistors. The transistors are then tied to power sources of positive and negative voltage. By opening one of the two transistors, you can get either a negative or positive voltage. That's your -1 or 1. To get the third output, the intermediate 0, we open both transistors at the same time.
That's actually clever. That actually makes sense. Huh.
This worked, but suffered major downsides. First, it's big. You have two transistors, two resistors, and two power sources of opposite voltage. Second, no matter what the
I guess it would be less efficient than in that case.
Heating power and generating heat. Throughout the 1980s, Mufta and his colleagues proposed improved setups with fewer components and lower power draw. For instance, one had just the two CMOS transistors and one resistor. You created the intermediate value by turning both CMOS transistors off, leaving the resistor to pull a weak voltage from an external power source. In 1983, Mufta's team presented the QTC-1, a very basic computer with 4 units built using the CMOS plus 1 resistor setup. It can fetch data from memory, write to memory, and do some basic ternary math.
Maybe it was that it was a lot simpler to produce binary than ternary.
Working on their CMOS ternary system. A Nobel paper in 1985 eliminated the power-hungry resistors altogether. Another proposed some interesting ternary versions of certain circuits, like ROM memory. However, the peak of Moore's law in the 1990s and early 2000s diminished the perceived need for ternary strengths. Why does it matter that trits can carry some more information when bits and transistors are so cheap?
I think that's ultimately what it came down to, is it was more about what is the better value that you can get out. Now, the honest truth is, sorry, I'm trying to find a eyeglass cleaner I dropped. The honest truth, though, is that Moore's law isn't really so much as a law as an observation. And Moore's law is already breaking down now because we're running against physical limitations. We're now at the point where we're manufacturing at close to molecular levels. You can't get much smaller than a molecule. So now we have to find alternative ways to really improve efficiency and performance. And I know a lot of people are like, well, quantum computing. Well, the issue with quantum is we still haven't really figured out at the mainstream level to make it able to work at room temperatures. A quantum computer right now with the qubits and everything still requires like a major room-sized cooling system that brings it to, like, damn near absolute zero. And that's the main issue with it. But otherwise, I think it'd be interesting.
Well, now everyone says that Moore's Law is dead, so other devices have been proposed for potential ternary use. Two major ones I'll highlight here are memristors and carbon nanotubes. Let's start with memristors, the famed resistive device with inherent memory. Its resistive value depends on the history of electrical current and voltage passing through it. Memristors can combine with traditional CMOS transistors to produce multi-level logic. This hybrid circuit works fast, but
I haven't really paid much attention to memristors.
As the other CMOS arrangements mentioned earlier. A second way would be to use a special 3-value memristor to directly build ternary logic gates. That memristor would be switched by carefully controlling the current flowing through it. There's far less known of this approach.
Well, a lot of this is still in theory.
Carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are atomic sheets of graphene rolled up into very small tubes about a nanometer wide.
Carbon nanotubes are really interesting when you actually get to understand them.
Very promising technology for multi-level transistors. In January 2025, Chinese researchers in the National Natural Science Foundation of China presented carbon nanotube-based devices that they call a source gating transistor. It has a bit of a weird structure. The source electrode is partially stretched over the channel, and the gate is positioned under the channel. So in a specific voltage range, the current increases, giving you this W-shaped voltage curve and 3 distinct states. The author said that the CNT transistor can be easily manufactured and produce several ternary circuits with it, like an SRAM.
That's interesting.
The recent emergence of neural networks has put...
I guess the question would be, how would you make something like this at scale is more than anything? Because ultimately, it's going to come down to dollars and cents of the extra production and how, cost effective can they do everything and how affordable can it actually be to the end user, whether it be a corporation or such. So I guess they're going to be talking about how AI is rediscovering ternary computing. So let's see what they say.
Into the limelight.
We're talking about ternary computing, which is different than binary.
Deep neural networks
it's got 3 states instead of 2.
Which limits their usefulness in devices with energy or compute constraints. Broadly speaking, ternary's appeal is that trits let us do more, reducing a model's footprint. A model is made up of weights, floating point numbers representing its learned parameters.
I guess that makes sense.
Run inference on a model,
right?
The input data and multiply and sum them with those weights.
Right.
I.e. that famous multiply accumulate or MAC action that takes up 99% of what an AI accelerator does all the time.
Did he really put a prodigy label?
Anyway, these weights come in a variety of precisions. High precision would be using 32-bit floating point numbers. These are more accurate, but multiplying them takes longer.
Yeah.
Moreover, it takes more memory to store these numbers, which especially sucks when transporting these weights data from memory to logic and vice versa, the famous von Neumann bottleneck. So we quantize these models down to lower bit numbers, like 16-bit, 8-bit, or even 4-bit to use less memory and reduce compute time at the cost of some accuracy.
Yeah, so in a lot of you are talking about, hey, I got this, 27 billion parameter model working, but I had to add quantization. That's what it's doing, and that's why it's also less accurate. It is what it is, but there was also Air LLM, which is a way that you can apparently run far more efficiently different LLMs. I can't tie it into Olama yet. A lot of people have been asking about that, but that might be a way to get 7 billion model parameters to work on something like a 5070 Ti that I run right now with 16 gigabytes of RAM.
The most aggressive form of quantization is binarization, turning all the floating point numbers.
Do you have a carbon nanotube? No.
1 or 1. With binarization,
just in my pants.
Multiplication is no longer necessary. It's
that small.
Making inference ultra fast. The trade-off, of course, is a large loss of accuracy. Ternarization is similar, quantizing everything to trits. The memory footprint and logic complexity get slightly worse, but there is more accuracy.
Oh, really?
Moreover, having a 0 lets you skip every multiplication action involving that 0.
Huh.
But to quote a famous movie, never go full ternarization. The information losses are too drastic.
I'm not sure that's what they said in Tropic Thunder.
Doesn't make sense. Various hybrid methods exist, though I won't go into them here. It's just one example of the ways ternary has gone back into vogue. So, to end all of this, what is this Huawei patent discussing? The patent covers a ternary logic gate that can do simple math operations like adding or subtracting a ternary input. This can also be used for ternary logic. Since we do not have a native switch with 3 output states, Huawei proposes to create 3 groups of transistors with significantly different threshold voltage levels, low, medium, and high, and use that to build ternary logic gates. Very
interesting.
Indeed. Wouldn't expect anything less from Huawei. But I do wonder about the complexity of manufacturing 3 groups of transistors so close together.
That's my concern.
Often because it would require extremely precise doping of the silicon channels, as well as modifying the metals and thicknesses of the gate stacks.
We already have enough problem trying to get efficiencies out of the current wafers in binary. I mean, if you actually looked into when CPUs are produced, I believe this was how it was explained to me. So, like, when a lot of you are, getting your 5070 Ti, your 5060s, 5050s, and 5080 and 5090s, they're generally just from the same wafers, more or less. They're just binned based on capability. Now, I know nowadays it's that they don't have everything, physically enabled. They actually, neuter them. But back in the day, you used to be able to flash certain GPUs with different BIOSes and enable the disabled components that were there. So you used to literally have the same chip, it was just binned differently. It wouldn't be, say, as efficient as, say, the higher end version, per se, but you'd get a lot of the same performance. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we can do to get around this, if anything. But it'll be interesting as well to see if they want to invest the capital on ternary or quantum. But quantum, I think, is, if we were to compare ternary and quantum, the amount of development that would be required to get quantum to work at a mainstream level is a lot more than I think ternary would require, because ternary can at least operate at room temperature, whereas quantum, for the most part, it still relatively has to be extremely cooled. Now, I know there have been advances that in certain cases they don't need to cool it nearly as much, but there are still a lot of considerations around there, and I think we're at least quite a while away from having quantum computers in our pockets or even at our desks.
Nevertheless, that's not the point of the patent. Huawei's work is a sign that despite binary's dominance, ternary retains its theoretical allure. Can ternary, quote-unquote, revolutionize AI inference or compute or whatever? In theory, maybe. But those theories will remain as such until someone goes out and builds it. Alright everyone, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, sign up for the Patreon, and I'll see you guys next time.
Alright. Cool. Well, we got this from Savvy Nick. This is hurting Linux more than bugs. I think this had to do with documentation. So we'll see what they're talking about on Savvy Nick.
Linux and open source have a big problem, and it's around documentation. Today we're going to go through an example and near perfect case study.
Oh, I've been complaining about documentation for quite a few things for a while.
Background, and ultimately leads to poor adoption by users, even though the code itself is solid. We'll also talk about other cases, but the first case I want to talk about, what we'll be calling the new mount API, which we can see conversations of it taking place all the way back in July of 2018. This commit here was add man pages or manual pages to document the move, mount, and open tree system calls, and it was signed off by David here. The idea here was to document and submit a patch which commits and adds 2 new system calls to the manual pages, move, mount, and open tree, in an attempt to talk about 2 specific system calls that could be used, and was an example of how we actually had documentation written in a timely manner. This was Linux 4.18 that was released in August of 2018, and a man patch.
It's so weird to say that 4.18 was 2018. It's almost 8 years ago. It is 8 years ago. Wow!
or a manual patch was posted on July 10th, 2018. That's not bad. This is before Linux 4.18 was released. And it is a good example of how, as kernel developers also use these documentations, they can be referenced to optimize, refactor, extend, and fix bugs to understand things. But without documentation, adoption stalls, not only with developers, but with users. Without documentation, people don't necessarily understand what the intention was behind the implementation of the code, or, for example, this API. And quite simply, having plain and user-friendly.
I thought that said heroin.
Helps people understand how to use the code correctly, make sure that they don't break the code later, and that everyone uses it the same way. Releasing documentation soon after the code helps people use the new feature safely, correctly, and with confidence. But
that's why even in my projects I have documentation written. It may not always be the best, but it's there.
From completely not having documentation to simply not having it for a long time, as it lags the actual code development itself. And here's a perfect example of that. Let's get into this. In talks back and forth, all the way up to July 20 of 20, in a reply to David,
is ISO 17 Pro Max ARMS architecture secure than the previous model? They're just as secure. There's nothing really anything new.
Move mount and open tree. This was an email from Michael here, who's the main,
at least to my knowledge,
Pages project, writing to David to restart the stalled documentation work for the new Linux Mount API. The background here is in between 2018 and 19, we already saw draft man pages for the new mount related system calls, including that move mount and open tree. And those drafts were sent to multiple mailing lists, sometimes duplicated, and never fully merged into the official man pages set. David did attempt to write a clear API documentation for the code and asked for clarification and feedback from users, but that never actually happened. Basically, Michael was just trying to unstick this process and finally get the documentation merged. Basically, he's asking David to review and update, resend each man page in a separate patch, and carbon copy.
The YouTube link for what? That? I think you're still on the turn area over there. I can put that. That's the turn area one.
Copy the correct mailing lists.
Because I'm looking over at the TikTok, and TikTok is really slow today.
As it involves many maintainers and people who need to get involved in order to make sure that the documentation is correct. And clearly the mailing list friction here slowed everything down. David was on top of things, but needed feedback due to divided ownership, evolving code, and needing everyone to agree before releasing the documentation. So now we again are in July of 2020. Nearly 2 years after the initial documentation was released, there has been back and forth. Clearly, the back and forth has just caused confusion. This is a big reason why documentation fails, is the search for correctness, as there's no clear state or progress tracking. On mailing lists, patches are emails, progress is scattered across threads, and there's no dashboard saying it's progress, like 70% done, or there's no way to really tell what's failed, and people just don't want to read documentation. As developers, really would just
I'm guilty of that. I don't even want to write documentation, which is why I generally will just put my code through Claude and then say, write some documentation on that. And I'll give it a quick read through, and I'm like, that works!
just want to focus on the code. So really part of this is the process, right? The way that we approach these documentations makes it for an uphill battle, but this is definitely not the only reason. We're going to get into some more reasons, but if you enjoy videos like this, make sure to subscribe below and smash that like button on the way back up. YouTube can get finicky. You wouldn't want to miss another video. Let's continue down this storyline, as this is over a 6-year journey at this point, and it's not the only project that has this documentation problem. So to recap a little bit, in 2018, the first management attempt was stalled.
We got a bunch of, API. I'm going to jump ahead here.
5.2 in 20 projects. As this is what a man page looks like. For those of you unaware, you can easily look this up. For example, I pulled up the FS Open.
Okay, it's documentation. So, I'm really guilty here because while I'm like, yeah, nobody wants to read documentation, apparently I don't even want to watch a video about documentation either.
Full switch for years. We also had Wayland. Wayland, as a lot of us are familiar with, had its protocol documented, but the ecosystem behavior wasn't. So it was missing a lot of how do I do whatever XYZ answers. And app devs got stuck for years delaying their applications while using X11, waiting for answers. Adoption was slowed. We also have systemd. Internals is another example where we had sparse developer level documentation and Git plumbing.
Oh yeah, that's why systemd was so hard to actually get pulled.
As they assumed deep Git knowledge for a majority of users.
It took people a while to understand systemd because it was like we couldn't understand the documentation for a lot of it.
Porcelain commands like git commit, pull, and push instead of plumbing commands, which are more advanced internal tools meant for experts, but took forever to relay to end users outside of people who were advanced or expert developers. Anyways, let's focus back on the issue here with the file system mounting documentation. As Christian here from Microsoft, who also works on Linux, brought up a great point on Mastodon. Honestly, I'm prepared to start a Kickstarter for whatever amount of money it takes for someone to port Linux man pages from Groff to Markdown. Cyfar is doing important work as usual, gives us a link here, but Groff must be one of the original sins, like Moses came down from the mountain and was like, don't.
Never heard of Groff.
Accidentally dropped the first.
I've heard of Markdown. All of my documentation is definitely in Markdown. I've never heard of Groff. This is new for me.
Or something like, seriously, every time I have to look at patches, I die a little inside. And that is the sentiment from a lot of people. As they start talking about this was posted back in August when a lot of this documentation across the file system mounting documentation got brought back up. After 6 years of being released and developed, documentation still had not been officially finished and merged. So of course the adoption of the API suffered. And if you don't want to suffer, make sure to check out my checklist, cheat sheet, and mind map if you want to level up your Linux experience today, all at savvynick.com. Download them today. Anyways, I want to talk about Groff a little bit because a lot of you are probably unfamiliar with this. As we have
I definitely haven't heard of this before, and I'm shocked.
Old antiquated software. This is Groff, a piece of software, but powerful text formatting tool used to write these manual pages. Anytime you write out the man command, more than likely had been at some point formatted by Groff. You're able to write plain text mixed with special commands, and then Groff turns those into terminal formatted text, PDFs, and PostScript.
Groff is older than me.
Groff is extremely hard to use. It's very old. The tool is over 35 years old at this point. And that
yeah, thanks for making me feel old, Savvy Nick.
And it was designed for printers and terminals, not modern editors. The syntax looks strange and it's definitely not obvious, especially for new people trying to get into documentation. The tooling itself is poor. For those of you who have never heard or used Groff, there's no live preview. The error messages themselves are cryptic, and there's formatting bugs that are hard to debug. So
yeah, I'm gonna stick the Markdown then.
Feel very slow, and most Groff documentation just assumes that you already understand how to use the Linux typesetting system. It does explain what commands do, but they don't explain how to write good documentation. It is written clearly for maintainers and not for casual contributors, and that's what we need in the documentation space, as we are falling behind in Linux and open source when it comes to the documentation. And that's why there are efforts to modernize the way that we do documentation. We are thinking about this, but we are not moving fast enough. As we have clear examples that I've given, which documentation almost made a dev project completely fail.
Really?
Groff is so hard to use that we still have people like Douglas here who are giving an introduction to Groff. As of March 10th, 2020, this is one of the best tutorials that I found. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check this out yourself. But we go through much of what Troff and Groff are and how exactly things look. As this looks like
You're new to Linux, been using it for about 3 weeks. What should I learn? I've been thinking about trying to learn Wireshark. Wireshark is not really a Linux-specific thing. You can run Wireshark on Mac, Windows, or Linux. So that's more just learning a tool. To understand Linux, it's more just be in Linux, use it, and get comfortable with how it operates and how you do things inside of it. It's not really like, oh, I should learn this or that. It's more that you get comfortable with how things operate and understand the mindset of setting up a lot of basic services. So like understanding systemd, understanding, mounting disks and, how you can, basically just run through the actual operating system. It's a little bit different than using Windows, but all in all, I think it's not that difficult to, get a basic understanding of it. That's what I would focus on.
A coding language in itself. It's not easy to understand. For example, here we're writing out hello world in a documented way. It's more like writing assembly language Or for those of you,
holy shit, that's horrible.
Print your macros, this might look a little more familiar.
To give you an idea of just like how bad that is, I'm going to show you what a markdown README looks like. Okay, so this is Solar Storm Scout, right? This is how this looks. It's very simple to understand. You've got, you know, essentially over here to call upon an image for a banner. You've got the, you know, headers over here, ways to bold it and, you know, list it out. Like I said, I'll just literally give my code to AI and say, you do the thing. But all in all, it's pretty easy to understand it. And unlike the others, you can actually have a preview window, as we were talking about. So this is literally what that looks like. This all becomes this. Very easy to understand. It's a little bit different, but, you know, if you've done some basic HTML, this is easy compared to HTML. And HTML is not that difficult to begin with. So, yeah. But anyway.
Anyways, going through the code, we end up with something as simple as writing hello world.
Okay, so he's talking about graph and all that. I don't know about you. I already don't like reading documentation. I don't really care to watch an entire video about how we need to improve documentation. So, we're moving on. This is from the AI grid. The end of LLMs? A new kind of AI is emerging, and it's better than LLMs. It collapses the market.
Chief released a new paper, and is this the beginning
I'll
of
be
the
all
end
for
of
it.
LLMs? Let's talk about it. So most of you guys know that Meta's AI chief scientist Jan LeCun reportedly left Meta, or is leaving Meta, to build his own AI startup. But before that, he actually made a really interesting paper that I want to talk about. So the paper that he made with a bunch of different researchers from Meta is called VLJEPA. So this is a vision language model built on joint embedding predictive architecture, which is JEPA. And this is, I guess you could say, an extension of the VJEPA architecture. So this is really cool because this is from Meta's Fair Lab, of course. Yeah, you know, Jan LeCun is the one leading this. And the, you know, ridiculous thing about this, well, not ridiculous.
Vision language. So what is it doing, like video processing?
Unlike models like ChatGPT that generate answers.
If I had $1 for every time I hear him say documentation,
does something
yeah.
completely different. This is a non-generative model. So this predicts meaning directly, and it's not via text. So this model builds an internal understanding of what it sees, images, video, and then converts that understanding into words if needed. Now, because it learns in a semantic space instead of token space, it's faster, more efficient, and uses about half the parameters of traditional vision language models, while often performing better. And this is crazy because what this means for robotics, agents is super crazy. So let's get into this. So one of the things I wanted to, you know, really point out here to show you guys how, you know, different this architecture is that it talks about the fact that this is a non-generative system. So if you know what a generative system is, usually this means a generative model like ChatGPT, GPT-4. This produces tokens or words, you know, one at a time. You know, you go from left to right, and every output must be fully written to exist. So to answer what's happening in this video, a generative model is going to be like, okay, I'm going to decide the first word, then the second, then the third, until it finishes the entire sentence. It literally...
This is why we keep saying in the, you know, more knowledgeable space that generative LLMs are, and generative AI, which is the buzzword term that everyone uses, are basically just fancy autocomplete. That's all they really are. They're not really like learning or operating. They're working off of trained data and trying to do things on a predictive pattern. And I think this is also why ChatGPT has been having diminishing returns, because they're giving more data and they're making these models larger. Like, what is it? They have 1 trillion parameters, but there's so many parameters in there that they're getting, you know, tripped over their own shit. Now, what I am curious to see is when tiny recursion models and other things like that, or what is it, hierarchical reasoning models, start coming more into play. But
you know, it can't know the final answer until it finishes generating it, which is very slow and very painful. But a non-generative system means here is that it does not need to talk to think. So VLJEPA, essentially what it does is that it does not generate words by default. It doesn't predict the next token. It doesn't need sentences to exist. Instead, it predicts a meaning vector directly. So think of the differences like this. Generative AI is, let me explain what I think while I'm still figuring it out. A non-generative AI says, I already know, and I'll only explain if you ask. And remember, this is the entire reason that Jan LeCun cares about this so much, is because he has been saying for so long that language is not intelligence. His belief
Proton email leak
equals understanding the world, and language is simply just an output format, but VLJEPA reflects that philosophy exactly. So this is why this video is talking about what this might be after LLMs, where you're thinking in language, reasoning in tokens, and where you're thinking in a latent space, reasoning in meaning, and language is actually optional. This is the paradigm shift that this paper is talking about. And I think that maybe, just maybe, if this gains more traction...
I don't see any data breach.
So essentially what you're looking at in this video is where you have a map of...
The only thing I see is from a few years ago. But that was seemingly a hoax. What leak are you talking about?
The internal understanding over time. So each dot is essentially what the AI thinks is happening at that moment. So you can see the red ones, those are basically the instant guesses, but the blue is essentially the stabilized understanding. So
interesting.
What you're seeing on the left is essentially the vision model, what it would be able to see. Now what most people are going to ask here is, how is this even different from a cheap vision model just describing exactly what the video is doing? Well, the short answer is that cheap models, they talk, but VLJEPA is understanding. So we need to break down exactly what that means. So the low-cost vision model, the describer, is basically a cheap basic vision model that works like this. You have the frame.
That's fascinating, actually.
Then label.
Although, really, you gotta go with that suggestive motion right there over a cucumber. This video belongs on,
frame and label. So it looks at each frame, it guesses what it sees, and it spits out the text immediately. So this is, what does that look like? Hand, bottle, picking up canister, and it's jumpy, inconsistent with no memory.
Like I'm saying,
But this is where we have VLJEPA. So VLJEPA does this instead. It's got a video stream, of course, and it's got continuous meaning, and then it's the event. So this tracks the meaning over time, building a stable understanding, and it only labels the action once it's confident. That's why you see red dot, which is an instant guess. Well, it might be wrong, it might be bottle, but then the blue dot is a stabilized, meaning it's a canister. So the reason that this actually matters a lot is because the cheap model is going to say, I see a bottle, I see a bottle, I see a bottle. But then VLJEPA is going to actually understand the action and say the action is picking up a canister. So the killer difference is, of course, time. Low-cost models think in single frames and they have no real sense of before and after. VLJEPA thinks in temporal meaning, and it knows when an action starts, continues, and ends.
That's fascinating, actually.
Robotics, wearables, agents, real-world planning, and why the dot cloud matters.
Imagine for actual vision-based AIs and stuff like that, that would actually be very useful compared to the current LLMs that we have, where it has to go and think through, but it has to be trained on that data. I mean, it probably still has to be trained, but this is really fascinating how this works. What's up, VTuber? Not sure which stream is out of sync. Twitch is going on about the kitchen, and TikTok is you thinking about Markdown. TikTok is far behind. I don't know why TikTok's having an issue today, but TikTok is very far behind. I'm watching the stream. Twitch, Kick, and YouTube seem to be relatively okay. YouTube is always a little bit behind. TikTok is normally not that bad, but TikTok is really behind today. Yeah.
Is that, it's showing, meaning drifting slightly from frame to frame, then locking in once enough evidence exists. And this is something that, the token-based models, they can't really do efficiently because, number one, they need to, keep generating text. And number two, they can't hold silent semantic state. So, if you think about it, a cheap model...
This is why I tell people to go to the Twitch, by the way.
To shouting guesses, but a VLJEPA is a human watching and saying, okay, he's picking something up. So then, of course, you might want to understand the diagram of the architecture. So this is the VLJEPA model architecture. So if you wanted to know how...
Encoding, predicting,
honestly,
encoding.
Confusing, so I decided to just get a simpler description. So I actually used GPT image 1.5 to get this image because... GPT 1.5? Jeez, that's a while.
So old AI, as we know, talked to think, let me describe it. Image video, let me describe it. Meaning eventually, meaning only exists after talking. So the human analogy is old, I have to talk to know what I think, new, smart, enjoying. The new AI that this is doing thinks first, has an understanding, is silent, but then has words only if asked. I already know, I'll explain if you ask. That's essentially how a lot of humans operate. We observe what goes on in the world, and we're not always talking about everything that goes on. We're not like, what's his face from the Toy Story song? What was it? Who's it? You Got a Friend in Me. Randy Newman. It's not like Randy Newman that can sit around on a piano talking about everything around their surroundings. Like, have you seen that Family Guy episode? You know, where he talks about things when they have that nuclear catastrophe or whatever, and Stewie turns into an octopus, I think it was that episode. That's basically how humans generally operate. We, sit back, we understand a thing, and then if somebody is like, hey, what'd you see? And then we'll tell them about what we saw. That's at least how I'm processing this. And that actually makes a lot more sense for many different kinds of processing, because this has always felt like a very inefficient way to do visual processing, whereas this seems to be a lot better.
This is actually pretty good. And if, this is too much, I also have this one right here. So language is optional, understanding is not. So basically, the X encoder is the visual input, so it's going to be the video frames. The predictor is basically the brain. The Y encoder is the textual query, which is what you'd be asking it. And then, of course, you've got the encoded meanings from the word, which is the Y decoder. Then, of course, you're comparing the thoughts, which is a training loss, which essentially means that, it's just getting better over time. And then, of course, you got the...
Would the textual thinking be like the equivalent of people that actually have a narrative thought process inside their head?
Output, which is the correct answer, which is the actual meaning. Now, if we look at the tests of this is currently the best. So we're looking at the scoreboard, which is where we can see the other ones.
Holy shit, that's small.
Clip, SIG LP, and PE Core. They're older, well-known vision models. And compared to VLJEPA base, this is, and VLJEPA SFT, which is, fine-tuning. And then we can see that VLJEPA is a really, really incredible improvement. And one of the things I think, a lot of people...
Look at that. That's like 2 billion, 2.5 billion parameters. Gemma 312B, to give you an example that I'm using on my local LLM, is 12 billion parameters. You need a 5070 Ti... or 5060 Ti at least to operate. You need 16 gigabytes of VRAM. This is 2 billion parameters. This is smaller than Gemma 3, the 4B model, I think it is, that I use on my 3050.
Miss is that, of course, you're probably going to miss the fact that VLJEPA is super, super small.
Yeah,
so,
see?
How generative models just, tokens on tokens on tokens.
Oh, yeah.
If you're thinking about something that actually reasons like a human, you can see that the number of parameters, the number of samples seen, you can see that VLJEPA is 1.6 billion parameters and 2 billion parameters, in terms of the samples seen. So it's remarkably more efficient than the other things that we're, looking at. So
right, I mean...
pretty incredible how that is. I mean, if we, continue to look over here, you can see that the zero-shot video captioning. So this is where it's showing with the same data and same setup, VLJEPA actually learns faster and it reaches higher caption quality, and predicting meaning, learns faster than...
The first NAS up and running, but it's on a different subnet router anyway to connect.
And it's the same thing. VLJEPA goes quickly ahead, and the visual language models improve very slowly. So even without fine-tuning, VLJEPA understands...
When you say it's on a different router, do you mean like another physical router? Because ideally you want it on the same router, maybe at most a different VLAN. I have my NAS on a different VLAN, and then I have rules to allow this network to reach that network. But yeah.
It's better. And this kills the idea that you need token generation to understand things. And it's clear that, Jan LeCun is onto something. So once again, if we look at the right size, remember once I said that again. Now, remember once I said that if you look at the actual size of the models, you can see that once again, visual language models are, much larger and much less efficient. And VLJEPA only needs like 0.5 billion parameters in terms of their predictor. And so there's no heavy decoder during training. So VLJEPA is going to get better.
That's amazing. That's like exactly what I was thinking. the average inference time cost. Look at that, 330 milliseconds to, you know, what is this? Only needing like 16 milliseconds? It's crazy.
Right.
Thinking about woodworking. Router as a standalone word had me confused for a second. Yeah, not that kind of router. Though I am handy with that kind of router, too.
Terms. And of course, here we have Jan LeCun talking about this stuff. I mean, this was, I think, around 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Firewall has seen as much visual data as the biggest LLM trained on the entire text ever produced. And so what that tells you is that there is way more information in the real world, but it's also much more complicated. It's noisy, it's high dimensional, it's continuous, and basically the methods that are employed to train LLMs do not work in the real world. That explains why we have LLMs that can pass the bar exam or solve equations or compute integrals like college students and solve math problems. But we still don't have a domestic robot that can, you know, do the chores in the house. We don't even have level 5 self-driving cars. I mean, we have them, but we cheat. So
yeah, and I think that's a big reason why I've been saying those Optimus robots that Elon Musk has are never really going to happen, because you need something like this to be able to work with it. And Elon Musk is building this hardware without knowing what the solution is beforehand. But then again, he's a grifter. He'll sell a bunch of different things and, you know, get the Elangelicals to believe him and buy their shit up. I mean, they managed to sell that frickin' 1980s styled Tank Wars Cybertruck. But I digress. That's about using a router to cut Ethernet channels in crown molding to route the router. Musk is a professional pump and dump. Well, yeah, he definitely is a professional, you know, grifter in that way. The guy has never actually generated genuine ideas of his own to make himself a profit. He was born into wealth. He was very fortunate that way. He, you know, did a couple lucky things where he had X.com, which was pre-PayPal before they got, merged in. And X.com, if you actually look up the newspapers, I'll need to dig into this because it's so far buried. There were a lot of security issues where people could actually take money from accounts using X.com. Because remember, this was the late 90s internet. But Elon, has never actually genuinely created stuff of his own. Because look at, like, Tesla. Tesla was another person's company he bought his way into and basically had to sue to become a founder, if I recall correctly. PayPal fired him from the company. The only reason that he has SpaceX is he has the money to hire the people that have the knowledge behind the things that he wants to do. The only reason that he owns Twitter, again, he has the money. That's what it comes down to. I keep telling people, just because he has a lot of money doesn't mean that he's smart. I know a lot of rich people that are really dumb, and I know a lot of smart people that are really poor.
I mean, we certainly don't have self-driving cars that can learn to drive in 20 hours of practice like any teenager.
And then, of course, I actually went on Jan LeCun's Twitter and I saw him reposting this from Sonia Joseph. Now, this is someone, of course, that works at Meta. And she essentially said that we don't simulate every atom to model intelligence. We don't use quantum field theory to model road traffic. JEPA taught me the importance of learning physics at the right level of abstraction. Thank you, Jan LeCun and the JEPA team. It was a privilege.
That's a good way to put it.
Definitely take a look at this.
The thesis behind JEPA is that our current models are not predicting causal dynamics. And if you both predict in latent space and predict the future, then you're more likely to abstract away all of these pixel level details. For example, when we model even this conversation right now, we don't have to model it down to the level of atoms. That would be so computationally costly and so efficient.
Oh yeah, totally. That makes sense.
That's suited for our goal. So similarly, JEPA is
What's up, Kara?
optimized to have physical representations at the level of abstraction it needs. It enables it to plan in the physical world and be able to do counterfactual reasoning about objects that are moving around behind JEPA.
Now, I did see a few comments on Reddit talking about the video, saying that most of the actions that it detects are wrong though. If you stop the video at any time to actually read what it says, it's really bad. And someone also says, well, the same guy or the same person says that I stopped it like 5 times and they were all wrong, made up a slider pizza, made up something else. But I think the most important thing here is not that it's going to be 100% right. I think the most important thing is that it's actually moving us in the right direction of where AI models should actually be, and not completely distracted by chatbots.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, kind of ended on a hard note without saying, you know, anything. But yeah, I totally agree that that's on the right track, because I think this whole idea of LLMs is a failure. And the fact that ChatGPT is investing more and more money into LLMs, which are inevitably a very inefficient technology for a lot of the things people are trying to apply it to. Don't get me wrong, it is very useful for quite a few things. I use LLMs for quite a few things. But if we're talking about visual processing, for example, where we're talking about putting AI into cars, JEPA is a much better solution. Because we should be able to have it look at a human and be able to respond much quicker than have to talk to itself about things. This is, I think, in my perception, the difference between one talking about themselves and how, like, imagine if you had to think verbally on how to breathe. Okay, we're going to expand the lung. We're going to contract the lung. You know, think about all the, you know, muscles you would have to move that way. If you were to actually consciously think about that and verbalize that, that's essentially, to me, what an LLM seems to be doing. Whereas JEPA feels more like it's just doing things and then responding to the observation. So it's more the difference of, I'm breathing, but I'm breathing a little bit faster than normal. I'm breathing, but the air is a little bit more chilly. You get what I'm saying? We're still breathing, but now we're doing observations about it. Maybe it's not a good one-to-one example, but that's at least the perception that I'm kind of starting to get from it. That was a pretty good video. Oh yeah, Kara had me, I think this was this you? Somebody, shared this with me. Oh yeah. I remember what this was about. This was on Mastodon, which, by the way, there's a reason why I tell you all. Twitter's not the only social media app. A lot of the tech community actually is more so on Mastodon and Blue Sky these days. I don't get on it for political reasons. Like, I don't really care about politics, is what I mean. I go where the tech community is. And this was something, I actually follow him, and I think he follows me too on Mastodon. Where HSBC blocked their mobile app on the phone because he's got a password manager, Bitwarden, and it was installed via F-Droid. Its solution was for them to remove Bitwarden. Of course, his solution was to stop using HSBC's app. This is really janky that phone apps are telling you to remove apps you've installed on your phone to access your money on your phone. That is really effed. There is no reason that should be happening whatsoever. And especially with a password manager. Here, let me just use password 1234 for everything. Is this the goth dommy mommy convention? No, although thick thighs save lives. Until AI has a level of intuition, it's not going to be great for self-driving cars. There are days I'm driving and everything looks fine, but that bad feeling end up revealing in black ice. Yeah, exactly. Well, that, and I've actually been in enough Teslas, thanks to coworkers, where I do not trust them. And the funny thing about, Tesla, you know, fanboys and the Elongelicals is every time, I swear to God, every time I've had a friend where their Tesla basically throws us into a near-death incident. That is not hyperbole. I have been in so many situations that the car almost killed us. Oh, we're driving down the highway. Hey, I'm going to suddenly make a left. Or the time it almost ran into the gate at work. Like, it literally sped up. Or it didn't even see the gate and it didn't stop. That was another time. Or there was the time when he was going straight and then suddenly the car was fighting him and going blah, 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 and he had to hold the wheel to control it. You know, like really hard. Not just, he was already holding it, but he had to like really hold it, like white knuckle it to get it to stay steady. I've been in so many situations where a Tesla has almost killed me. That's just a few of them. So yeah, I totally do not really think that automated driving with an AI is still where it's supposed to be for it to be fully autonomous. It may never be. It may happen. Who knows? But I know right now, I am not at the state of comfort with any of these AI systems to feel like I should be able to let myself not drive the car. If given the choice, let's put it this way. If I were at a bar and I knew I drank too much where I should not be driving my car, and my car happened to be able to have self-driving capability, I'd still call an Uber. I mean, I know legally you still should anyway, but you get my point there. All right, let's see. How long is this video? If it's about 20 minutes, we'll watch this one. Nope, that's a little bit long. All right, we're going to move on to this one, though. Jacka, which I think this was Jake from Linus Tech Tips that's gone and done his own thing, said, I'm uninstalling Windows. This was 9 days ago. Now, what I find interesting is that a lot of people are unironically, sorry, make sure I said that right, unironically uninstalling Windows. And I've said this before on the channel multiple times. It is mind-blowing that it was only a few years ago that I was getting made fun of on these live streams. Oh, bro, you're using Linux. What do you think? You're so special. Nobody's ever going to do gaming on Linux. Stop trying to make it a thing. Nobody's ever really going to try to use Linux except nerds. To the point that now we not only have the Steam Deck, we have the Steam Machine coming out. We have the Steam Frame. We have it's the great anime adoption all over again. Yes! We got bullied. We deserved our One Piece sagas. Y'all just got to enjoy it when it's cool. But yeah, like a lot of people are unironically now coming to Linux. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very happy that that's happening. But what I'm amazed by is how fast it's happened, and that Microsoft is one of the biggest pushers, that it's maybe one of the few silver linings of this whole AI bullshit bubble. Because here's the thing. When the AI bubble bursts, Microsoft is going to still keep that AI crap in their machines. Watch. They're going to keep it. Because they've invested the money in it, and for them to just pull the features out would be them admitting loss. And then they're going to have to explain to shareholders why they spent all that money on a product that didn't actually end up being worthwhile. It's going to make Satya Nadella look really bad that investors might actually come after his head. Anyway. Let's get this video.
I'm having a great time right now. It's been 30 minutes of trying to install one program. Holy. Do you ever feel like Windows just keeps getting worse? It's almost like every week they add more bloat, ads, half-baked updates on features that already work just fine, and slide in AI crap where it shouldn't be. Not to mention making it harder and harder to have any semblance of privacy while you use the damn thing.
Everything I've been saying for a while.
I'm sick of it. I just wish there was something other than Windows that you could run on your...
How needed are Rails for a 4U ATX case? Depends on the size of the actual case itself. If it's a shallow depth one, not really. If it's a full length one, you definitely do, because you can twist that chassis. So you're ideally going to want to have all 4 posts with the rail. Mine are small enough that they're shallow, that I can just put the 2 screws up, like for example, like this is my new firewall. I'm going to put some ears on this, and this is going to be mounted. That's going to be the front face over here. This guy, you know, it's light. That's going to fit just fine on a rack without any particular rails. It just needs ears. So I just literally screw them into these screw holes over here, and that works. But yeah. Local Pilot gives them another tracking software. Yeah, Copilot and Recall. It's just ways for them to gather more data on you to be able to make more money off of you. Microsoft is not really interested anymore in... Microsoft is not really interested in selling you a product anymore. They're not! And I'm going to move to the top over here because I'm blocking this little machine over here. That looks like the Framework mini PC that they have there. I do kind of want one, but I can't justify the money. But anyway, Microsoft is not really interested in so much of selling you products, so much as giving you products that they can then turn you into the product. That's why I tell people all the time, oh, what? You really think Microsoft is letting you run your operating system unactivated because you're getting one over on them? Or what, you think cracking Windows to get rid of that one little watermark is really getting one over on them? You're still using their software that gives them money based on your browsing habits and all the telemetry that your Windows machine feeds back.
PC, whether it's for business or for pleasure. Whoa! What's that? Oh.
Level 1 text.
Jake, you shall have a task to make you an example in these dark times.
I do want to meet that dude IRL one day.
Well, I think you'll like it. It's probably funny.
Good idea, oh lord!
Of course it's a good idea. Behold, look well upon this, Jake. This is TUS. This is your task. This is your mission. This is what you must embrace and construct and experience. Linux.
A blessing from the Lord.
God be praised.
Look well upon it.
Did he really just put the cat on?
Linux is open source, and I thought it sucks for gaming and is ugly and hard to use.
Sure, that's what we've been told. But thanks to Valve's massive economic dong, brute forcing Linux adoption with the Steam Deck and soon to be Steam Machine, and the huge buff that's had to the Linux user base, it begs the question, is it possible? Hell, maybe even better to run Linux on your computer for gaming or productivity than Windows or Mac OS.
Spoilers? I was trying to do a funny thing right now, and I need to, like, organize my desk more. Okay, but spoilers, there it is. Okay, so spoilers for the video. Yes! GTX 980 Ti 6GB is terrible. Doesn't support secure boot at all. Secure boot doesn't matter. I don't even use it. I don't use secure boot. I really don't. I Lux encrypt my disks and then call it a day.
To find out, I'm going to...
Is it truly a battle station if you're not struggling to find things on your desk? True.
Spend the next month of my life locked away from both, daily driving Linux on every computer I own so that you don't have to. And who knows, maybe it's gonna be great. Now, to be clear, I already use Linux in my home lab and on servers all the time. So,
I mean, technically it's Unify, but oh my god. Think about how much money all of that is. That's... Don't get me wrong. I have Unify switches. I have Unify access points. But he's unified up. Like, is that the Unify UPS at the bottom? And then what is that? Is that the Unify Dream Machine or whatever that has the drives? And then he's got a aggregator over here. Okay, one thing I would definitely tell him, do you see how he's using those SFP Plus modules over here? I'd probably tell him to move into direct attached copper. Because those transceivers get kind of hot. And they actually do use a little bit more power. And they technically have a little bit more latency than DAC cables. You don't need to go full fiber inside the rack. You can if you want. They're just kind of expensive to get, you know, fiber cables and all that. But a DAC cable works perfectly fine, and I'm using DAC. But yeah, these are running Linux in Unify stuff. I am going to be installing a Unify controller on a Raspberry Pi soon because my Unify Cloud Key Gen 2, the battery has died. And replacing those is a bitch, so I may as well just put a Raspberry Pi, have it read back to my NUT server running off my NAS, so that way my UPS can distribute all the way across the network. But yeah.
The fact that I've never daily driven it is frankly kind of embarrassing, so delay no longer. Where do we start?
I know I'm pausing a lot, but that actually surprises me for him in particular, because from the little bit that I watched Linus Tech Tips, I remember him being around. I would have thought he would have been one of the types of people that if you have like a home lab and you tinker, you'd at least be daily driving Linux in some capacity at some level. But then again, not a knock on him. If his, you know, example of, oh, I use Linux every day in my home lab is all this Unify gear here, then I guess he wouldn't really be daily driving Linux because, you know, you would be at least using Raspberry Pis, Rock Pros, you know, you'd have it on a dedicated device, you'd maybe have a full-on Proxmox or, you know, build your own TrueNAS or whatever, you know, you decide to do. Yeah. Oh yeah, Kara, the YouTube is behind. Here, I'll just put that in the chat. YouTube and TikTok are way behind right now.
And on servers all the time. So the fact that I've never daily driven it is frankly kind of embarrassing. So delay.
I wouldn't say it's embarrassing. It's just more shocking for you particularly, you know, because you're over here with Hack 5 on your laptop over here, and Hack 5 predominantly are devices that you tie into a Linux machine to do some additional stuff. So the fact that you're aware of Hack 5, but you haven't played with Linux, that's more shocking to me than embarrassing, but I'm not giving a knock on anyone. And he also has an N8N shirt on top of it. I don't know, it's just kind of... It's kind of shocking more than anything that he hasn't used it as a daily driver, or at least given it an attempt by now in 2026. But then again, I guess there's a difference between... I don't know what his background is, but I get... correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I don't think he had a professional tech background in the same way as many of us do in chat, or some of us are wanting to do in chat, or especially like someone like myself. He came up through the Linus Tech Tips kind of way, but yeah, anyway.
Longer. Where do we start? Where do you download a Linux? This is where things already start to get complicated. You see, the Linux project at its core is just a kernel, which is kind of like the engine of your operating system. Naturally, it's a very important piece.
Chief doesn't knock on anyone, his mods lies. That's because I knock on my mods all the time. You and your puppy, you know, girl addiction and Just Dev and his femboy addiction. I'm not knocking either one of you. I'm just teasing.
It basically acts as the glue between your hardware and the software, but you also need a couple other pieces like, you know, tires and suspension and whatnot before we can take this proverbial high road to enlightenment. Now, what we actually want to download is a Linux distro or distribution, and those come with all those other pieces already included. You probably heard of distros like Ubuntu or Mint, except there's actually thousands of flavors, all the way from
I'm here on Pop.
Montana Linux to...
At least he said the best Linux of them all. Hannah Montana Linux. That is the best Linux. I wish it was more modernized at this point because it's really old and it doesn't even work on a lot of hardware, but it was a thing, as well as Bebian. Justin Bieber Linux.
Whatever the f this is, it's on.
Yarch. We actually played with it on stream a while ago, if you remember, and I was like, I called a bunch of you degenerates.
A bit overwhelming, so I did what any sane person should, and I asked Twitter which distro I should use.
Oh! Oh, how did I never make that connection right there?
What the f? There were hundreds of suggestions. I downloaded a sketchy Chrome extension that let me scrape all the replies, put them into a big list, and we were left with the Twitter Linux leaderboard, upon which 4 distros shone above the rest: Fedora, CachyOS, Arch, and Bazite. As somebody who
Let me look at that list again.
Fedora, CachyOS, Arch, and Bazite.
Bazite and Fedora are basically similar projects. Cachy, I want to say, is based on Arch. I may be mistaken. I'm not too familiar with it. So you basically just picked 2 parents. Okay, Cachy is Arch. So you basically picked 2 parents. You didn't even, like, put Debians in the list. I would have honestly told them, like, look, you know, it's not really so much the specific distribution, it's the family of the distribution. The way I've broken it down, and I've talked about this in prior videos, you've got your Arch, you've got your RHELs, your Red Hat Enterprise Linuxes, which is, you know, like Fedora, Red Hat, of course, CentOS used to be one, so there's Alma and Rocky Linux. More of a server kind of thing, except for the Fedoras and stuff. You've got your Debians, which, of course, is Debian. You've got Ubuntu and all those derivatives there, like Pop! OS and stuff. You've got Linux Mint, which both comes in an Ubuntu and a Debian variant. You've got Zorin inside of there. And then on top of that, you have your Gentoo's, which, for the people that touch grass even less than the Arch users, that's an option. You've got, you know, your specialized ones, which I would consider your immutable operating systems. That would be like your Nix OSs. But also specialized would be like Cubes OS. Not that I generally recommend a lot of people use those, but they're there. But, yeah, anyway.
As somebody who kind of likes going fast, I was immediately drawn to CachyOS. It's a version of one of the main Linux distros called Arch. Yep, but what makes CachyOS interesting is how much faster it is than pretty much anything else. And I'm not talking like, oh, it's less bloated or there's faster animations. No, I'm talking optimizations that can legitimately yield double-digit speedups. There was even a dude in my Twitter replies saying that Counter-Strike gets more FPS in CachyOS than in Windows. Linux? Better for gaming? Huh? And while we're
it's not because of CachyOS per se. I mean, here's the thing. If we look at that chart, I think a lot of this has other things to do with what's inside the Linux kernel itself and other things. I'd be curious what that is going on there. But also, this is at like 4K. Either way, when you look at the graphics level, I mean, you're still doing good, but I digress.
OS than in Windows. Linux? Better for gaming? Huh? And while we're on the topic of gaming, it's hard to ignore Bazite, a derivative of Fedora that's built for gaming and tries to mimic the Steam Deck experience with GPU drivers and Steam Big.
The more I watch Linus and his security, the more I realize his content is just content. Whose content is just content? You talking about, I'm on YouTube since I can't prime you this month. Since I am mad at Amazon. Ah, that'll do it. But yeah, what do you mean in his security? The more I realize his content is just content. I'm curious what you mean. Where is Abby, the Arch user? Is Abby in the chat, or is Abby actually doing the sinful thing to Arch users in touching grass? She's gonna kill me when she meets me at DEF CON again. We hung out at DEF CON. She's really chill. She's fun to hang out with. We got really drunk.
Mode pre-installed. Bazzite honestly seems like a pretty sweet option, but it's not what I'm gonna use because it's designed as more of a managed experience where most of the operating system is read-only by default. And I know that sounds antithetical to like what you've heard about Linux being, oh, it's so
if you understand it's immutable, it's that way by design, so that way if you modify things and F it up, you're not as screwed. But, you know, you gotta read a little bit more of the documentation there than just what's on the surface level. So the reason why it does this, you can still modify and everything like that, but it's not managed in that way. It's just there's a different experience with immutable operating systems. So I'm gonna have to say, not trying Bazzite out because of this, and actually, you know, not understanding how immutable operating systems work before saying your thing, that would be, I'm gonna say, a knock on him in this case. You do need to try different things out and understand them at least. My opinion is the same thing as what my mother taught me, which is that I'm not allowed to make a face on any of the food that my mom brings out until I try it at least once, and then if I try it and then say I don't like it, then I'm allowed to not have it. But I must try it at least once before I can give my opinion on whether or not I like it. And the majority of times, you'd bring things out, you know, for dinner, and you'd be like, this looks really weird, or I don't really know if I'm gonna like this, and you take a bite, and I'm like, wow, I actually like cow tongue. Oh, wow. Like, look, I've tried Rocky Mountain oysters. Not my cup of tea. Good flavor. Really chewy. But I can at least knock it now that I know what it's about. I engage in tipping for maximum profits, yeah. I hate Immutable because I got blocked from installing stuff. I don't know why. Interesting.
By default. And I know that sounds antithetical to like what you've heard about Linux being, oh, it's so customizable, but I promise it's actually a good thing, especially for noobs, because it's a lot harder to brick your shit. I just feel like I want maybe a little bit more of a traditional Linux experience, at least to start. And you need to get subscribed because you don't want to miss the follow-up to this video where I tell you about my experience in a month or so once I'm...
Okay, fair enough. I'll take back my knock. Should have listened a little bit longer. But, you know, if you want to get that traditional vibe and everything. But, I mean, I'm not going to hate on immutables. I don't use them myself because I have my own workflow. But I'm not particularly against them. I do use immutable type operating systems in, say, my disposable VMs I use on Cube's OS.
Once I'm done, it's going to be magical journey. CES is definitely not next week. Then there's no Bara Linux. This one was a little bit further.
Hopefully next year, by the way, I'll make it out to CES. I'm hoping that I'll be able to take, possibly one of my mods has been doing clips with me. That is up in the air based on some other commitments that I have going on, but, it's possible. I got a buddy that wants me to work with him on some things and go to CES for some business stuff. And I told him if we use my content creator background and everything and just say you're part of my entourage, I can probably get him in under a press pass or whatever.
The list, number 9.
I did that back in 2016.
Blow your mind. It's gaming focused and based on Fedora, just like Bazzite, but it uses the performance optimized Linux kernel from CachyOS. Ah! How is any normal person supposed to figure out what one to use? That was 4 of like hundreds of suggestions.
Simple. You try one out and then you like it.
We're gonna flip a coin. The heads is CachyOS, tails is Nobara. And I'm sorry, Allie, there's no distro called My Balls. Not yet. Look, it's a loony.
We can make one.
If a dollar coin, it's called a loony because there's a loon on there. That's tails, and if I get that, we're doing Nobara. And on the other side is Queen Elizabeth, and she's gonna represent Cashios. I don't want to move. I swear it's heads. I don't.
If I were, if I were in his case, I would have just told him, like, look, if you're looking for a Fedora base, just go for the Fedora. Play with it, and then see where you want to go with there. Same way as I'm like, oh, you want to go with a Debian base? Just start with Debian or Ubuntu, and then go from there. Start with the roots, and then you can go from there. I mean, if you had the money, and you wanted to spend the license on a Red Hat license, which there's still not that much for desktop, you could do that too, but I wouldn't really put that on a, personal desktop. That's my own opinion.
You guys to think I bamboozled this shit, all right? I kind of want to do Cashy, so I might just flip this multiple times. Cashios it is, baby! I don't know why I did that, but before...
It'd be funny if you broke his camera.
Before we do that, we're gonna back up my systems just in case something goes wrong. And what better way to do that than by using the DH4300 Plus from Ugreen, who sponsored this portion of today's video. After you slide in up to 4 hard drives of your choosing with the DH4300 Plus, you can have up to 120 terabytes of raw storage to play with. That's enough to store thousands of 4K movies and potentially millions of photos, even if you're reserving a drive for parity to protect your data. It's kind of like having your own personal cloud. But don't worry, the setup is easy enough that even someone with no experience can be up and running in just a few minutes. And you can do it by connecting your phone just by tapping NFC. In just a few more clicks, you can also be
don't know if I like that.
Photos from your Android phone or your iPhone automatically.
Doesn't look like a bad device. I just don't know if I like the idea of like NFC on the device itself.
And it can even group your photos by person or by place without even having to upload any data to the cloud. That's all local.
Linux content is content security, man. Your YouTube is behind. Oh yeah, I know it's behind.
Baby, or in my case, taking full backups of my PC so I can nuke Windows without worrying. Cool, right? And it's fast too. With a wired connection, you can transfer at speeds up to 300 megabytes per second. That's astronomically faster than Google Drive will let me do, even with my multi-gig.
Oh yeah, because it's on your LAN.
You keep control of your data in the process. Like all of their NASs, it can handle the whole family with a full permission system so that you can keep your personal data separate from the rest. It's just that easy, and it works remotely too. If you want even more protection, you can even back up your Ugreen NAS to a service like Google Drive or another Ugreen.
Should you switch from Arch to Nobara on your gaming setup? That's a personal call. That's your computer. I mean, you pick whatever's best for you.
Automatically too. So even if you aren't trying Linux for the first time and you need a backup, why not solve your storage or photo woes with 15% off the new Ugreen DH4300 at the link down in the description. Let's down.
NFT. Ooh, I can show my Web3 URL and my crypto cuties and puppies. The other thing I would say is that if you're doing backups, there is a software that I do highly recommend. I've been recommending it all the time. I have standardized on it myself. They have an open source app. It is Blinkdisk. I love this app. And see right there, GitHub button. Look at that. Open source. Works for Mac, Windows, and Linux. They're coming out with a CLI version as well. So it lets you do file level backups, and the pricing on it is very straightforward. You can use the link in the bio if you want to, help support the channel. I am affiliated. But the open source app, you can use it. Doesn't cost you anything. But if you want to use their storage, you totally can. But the cool thing is, you can have it run on your local drive, your NAS, your S3 bucket that you control, SFTP, WebDAV, AWS S3, Google Cloud Storage, Azure Blob Storage, and more. So basically, you can do whatever backups you want on any system at your discretion. They make their money off of you paying them for their storage, but you aren't obligated to have to use their storage. For me personally, I'm using my local NAS, and then I'm backing it up to S3 as well. So it's great, file level backups, and it allows for versioning too. So if you're talking about backup system, you may as well. Cow tongue language, okay. Man, you're really behind on the YouTube, huh? Yeah, that's not a joke. There used to be a game where you have NFT puppies to play with and dress up. Yeah, I kind of remember some about that.
it. Oh, customizable, my favorite. That's not going to make this complicated. Ensuring a smooth and enjoyable computing experience.
Had a D&D fight part 2.
You use it. You better not be lying to me, Cashy. You good human? I'm gonna not even look at that warning at the top of the page. Gonna ignore it. We're gonna push through.
What is the warning? Select your preferred edition. Choose from a range of desktop environments, Wayland compositors, and X11 window managers, including KDE Plasma, GNOME, X. I'm not saying this is a bad operating system by any means, but I'm gonna say, if you're wanting a I'm new to Linux experience, that right here, congratulations! You have just overcomplicated it. This is honestly why I tell a lot of people, like, just go with Pop OS, just go with Ubuntu, just go with Debian even though Debian lets you customize it, but it's a little bit easier. Let's back up. Go with Mint. Go with Zorin. You know, like those will make it a lot easier. Or just go with straight Fedora at that point. The problem is when you go to any of the archetypes, for the most part, they allow you to customize things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a confusing thing to new users. So with that being said, I'm like, this is going to be interesting to see.
Not even look at that warning at the top of the page. Gonna ignore it. We're gonna push through. It's just like Windows. We have to make an install USB. They don't have like an install USB creator, so you download the ISO and then use a tool like Balena Etcher. And I'm gonna flash it to this SD card because it's faster than any of the USB drives I have, and I don't want to sit here and wait all day. And flash. Success. But now what?
You just wasted an entire gigabyte SD card on doing that, and you're telling me you, as a tech person that worked at Linus Tech Tips, doesn't have a plethora of flash drives? Like, every tech person I know has a bunch of flash drives within reach. That's just some of them. I've also got these. These are my most often used, you know, USB over here, basic USB 2 flash drive that's 8 gigabytes for BIOS and stuff, because sometimes they want USB 2, SD card reader, Ventoy over here, I gotta update that. Then I got my little 64 gig USB-C and A over here. This is my Phantom keystroker for pranking. And then when I wanna, you know, get really fast, this is my 256 gig that's super fast. Mostly just for transferring files. But yeah. I have a total of 3 thumb drives. One is Ventoy. See? Newbies recommend Catchy because of hype, not understanding stability. That's the problem. And that's why I tell a lot of new users, don't go after ooh shiny. Go after boring and reliable. Go with ooh shiny after you understand. You gotta walk before you run. You give me Catchy OS, sure, I'll be able to, you know, figure it out and understand it in less than a day. But if you're a new user, I've seen a lot of people turn themselves away from Linux when they go to these super customizable distributions because it overcomplicates the thing. You need to walk before you run, understand the operating system, which is why I tell people, you got your base Fedora, you've got Ubuntu, you've got Pop OS, you've got Linux Mint, you've got Zorin. Those right there, solid choices for beginners to start with. Any one of those. And then after you get a hold of it and you get used to it for a while and you want to change later, you totally can. Because one of the beautiful things about Linux is that you can take your home folder, which has your entire profile, and you can even make that a whole separate partition, install the operating system, and then have it hook back to the home folder. Your profile's there, and then all you got to do is reinstall the apps around it. And if you're using Flatpak stuff, the apps are actually in there already. So, like, when I reinstalled Pop OS because it got kind of screwy with the motherboard swap, not because of the motherboard, but because the issues that I had with the motherboard going bad, and then it booted up and it apparently messed some boot files up or anything like that. The data was still fine for the home partition, just the boot side was weird. Anyway, I reinstalled it, kept the home folder in place, and then all my Flatpak apps were there.
Install it on my MacBook? No, actually, you can't.
I only have one USB, that's why I have my Ventoy and HDD with Ventoy and Seamless. Yeah.
On Apple Silicon called Asahi Linux. And it does work on a ton of the older MacBooks. Anything M1 and M2 are pretty well supported. And if you go to the M4 specific support page, you can see TBA means that they haven't even started development. So yeah, it's not going on my MacBook. Ooh. Instead, we're gonna...
Well, the reason why is because
I could save money now and there.
one can eat.
Getting money in the daytime, even kinda when I sleep. Wake up to getting bread, bitch, I do this for the streets. ADHD.
The Nordic Cheek just subscribed.
Thank you for that sub there, Nordic Geek. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. First time sub, thank you. What's up, Fart Buckle? How's it going, buddy? Frosty Tools. Oh, Frosty Tools has been here. It just doesn't rib you as much, Just Dev. But just wait until they get my LLM built, because I'm going to specifically have it weighted to mess with you even more than everyone else. Because we got to keep that tradition going. I'm going to feed it information to make fun of you about femboys and stuff like that. Long-time lurker. Hey, well, I appreciate it. And happy hacking, buddy. But yeah, at this point, I don't even need the desktop. I just need the command line with cartilage out. Start on boot with Lutris in the background. Yeah, I mean, I've actually become very comfortable with the command line. And a lot of people be like, well, yeah, because you're a tech guy and you've worked on it for years. I can use the GUI. It's a matter of after you start using Linux for a while, you just learn the command line is a lot faster to do a lot of the same things. And I do the command line even on Windows stuff for quite a few things too. Because of what my German side of my family did, isn't it? Sure, let's go with that.
Install it on a Framework laptop. Now, if you're not familiar, Framework is a super cool company that builds devices that are designed to not only be repairable...
I still have never used the Framework laptop, personally. I've used a friend's Framework or two. They seem okay. I just personally haven't seen the reason for me to go out of my way to buy a Framework. I don't know what it is. I just generally like to get Tuxedo computers and System 76 more. Maybe it's because they actually are directly, you know, creating operating systems and doing that kind of thing. It's not that I have anything personally or professionally against Framework. I think they're doing a great job. It's just I haven't had the reason. Now, I would totally love to get their Framework laptop that has the RISC-V board just to play with it, but RISC-V is still very, very experimental, you know, so I don't know what it would be for a long-term, you know, kind of thing. But I think it would be interesting to play with them one day. Maybe I'll be successful enough that I can actually go ahead and get more hardware like that, but, you know, I'm not fortunate enough to have vendors want to send me a lot of hardware all that often.
This one is so repairable and upgradable that it actually comes in parts. It's a DIY edition that you have to assemble, which is kind of freaking awesome. Not only that, but you actually get to pick whatever parts you want, any RAM configuration, any SSD configuration. Hell, you can even pick your own RAM and SSD configuration and supply your own. In fact, I actually switched out the 1 terabyte SSD they sent me for a 4 terabyte SSD that I pulled out of the Framework desktop because I gotta be able to video edit on this thing. Oh God. Oh God. Oh, I didn't think about this. Does the video editing software run on Linux? I guess we'll find out. This thing it's a sword. I know we haven't even installed it yet, but the thing that has...
So the thing is, it depends on what video editing software he's using. Now, I can do video editing just fine. I actually use Kdenlive for my stuff. All my YouTube videos, all of my TikToks and stuff that you've seen clipped out, they actually come from Kdenlive. So if you actually look over here, I'm just going to open up one of my old projects over here so you can see, you know, totally works. That's Typo Sniper, okay? So it totally works. Video editing can be done. Now, there is also DaVinci Resolve, which works natively on Linux. The only issue with DaVinci Resolve is that they explicitly require an NVIDIA GPU. That's the issue. I don't know if that Framework laptop has an NVIDIA GPU. and he's probably going to be running into some issues. Now, I have an NVIDIA GPU, but I use Kden Live. That's more so because I haven't paid for DaVinci Studio. Down the road, eventually, I do want to pay for DaVinci Studio and upscale and upgrade, but I also want to make sure that when I do, that the mod that actually does all my editing and stuff like that can also be accessible to the same tools I use, because eventually it may get to the point where I send them raw videos and then maybe at least have it mocked up in a project, and then we just share the project files back and forth over Microsoft Office using OneDrive. I know, I'm a Linux guy. I like Office 365. So, first don't fuck your bitch in the click you claim. Just Dev. Yeah, I know. You're the one. I'm just saying, for anyone out there, they don't know that, you do my stuff. And I might be dragging that guy to CES one day with me. If we do, then I'll be live streaming. He'll be my bag boy. Kidding. He's going to be the camera guy and editor and all that. We'll figure it out if and when that happens. If Framework made a phone, 100% would want to try it. Maybe. But I don't think Framework would make a phone because it would have to be fully repairable. But Fairphone did, I think, pretty well. If Framework makes a phone similar to the Fairphone, maybe. But then the issue is, I would want it to use Graphene OS. Graphene OS only works on the Pixel right now. Now, I do hear that they're working with another major manufacturer of phones, but yeah. Time for bed for me. We'll go through the Twitch side of videos tomorrow and look for some content to take. Should be easy to take and put to clips. Well, I appreciate it. It's just Dev. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will make sure that I send you. It's mid-month almost, so I will have you know, your money sent in a little bit. Hopefully, you have one of them stabilizers. My hands are very shaky, so I actually have the DJI Pocket camera, but if we do end up doing that, I totally will be buying one of the gimbals.
Worried more than anything is the battery life. I'm so used to using an ARM-based MacBook that's like crazy power efficient. So to go back to AMD is a little daunting. Let me just swap the I/O. Ow! Fuck! We got a Ryzen AI 9 HX 370 with Radeon 890M graphics. Huzzah!
Okay, that's not gonna work well with DaVinci.
Wendell would be so proud of me right now.
Don't get me wrong.
Hey, look at that. Where's my mouse? Oh my god, it's so small. Launch installer, eh? Very nice. Oh my god. We haven't even started the installer and it's...
You see, this is why I said don't install Catchy if it's just your first operating system. He's not going to know what any of this means. He's not. Grub is the traditional way a lot of people boot. System D is now how a lot of things are starting to switch over to. Refind is what I used to use when I was managing multiple boots. I don't know what the AI SDK is, and I don't know what Limine is. But the point being, this right here is specifically why I tell new Linux users, don't go for new shiny. Go for boring and reliable. Again, Fedora, Ubuntu, Pop OS, what was the other one I said? Zorin and Linux Mint. Very bald. Chief drag Dev to IKEA to meet femboys. Nah, take him to DEF CON. I'll see enough of them there.
Be asking me what to pick and giving me no information about which one I should pick, other than this one is the default, so...
You see, he doesn't have any information. That's why I'm like, old and boring.
Later. Yo, I can install with Z. I only got one disk. I'm probably not going to do that. That seems like a lot of overhead. There's so many options. Install with Z. I only got one disk.
Another mistake here. You have one disk. Extended 4 is probably the best all-around file system that you should be using on Cache. Can you use the others? Yes. But while you could use ZFS, only recommend that in multiple disks. ButterFS, don't get me wrong, it's all right. But for all-around general performance and all that, Extended 4, in my experience, is just a lot better of a bet for the average user.
Probably not gonna do that. That seems like a lot of overhead. There's so many options. Oh my god.
You see?
No. I think I can change these after.
Kind of.
I know GNOME. GNOME is like the OG, the default. Cosmic. Whoa, that looks like Mac OS. We
If you're going to use Cosmic, you may as well just use Pop OS at that point. I mean, can you use it on another one? Yeah, but...
Ask the internet. A lot of people are saying Plasma. Okay, well, let's start with Plasma. Oh, cool.
Sure, let's go with one of the heaviest ones.
Cosmic looked cool. I like the idea of that one. Maybe we'll try Hyperland, because people kept yapping about that. Whew. That was stressful. I like how there's like a description.
Oh, Cosmic is open, so yeah.
But I feel like there should be a default. New users should probably use...
There should be a default. The default is not using a distribution that's based on Arch. That's going to give you this problem in the first place. This is why you shouldn't go to Twitter and just ask random people. Maybe you should go, like, to, I don't know. Reddit's not that much better either. You can go ask around. Dude, this is where one of the things, like, okay, you actually have the ability to talk to Wendell. I would have told you, just reach out. There's nothing wrong with asking him, like, what are your recommendations? Look, I told you recommendations that you can start with. Doesn't mean you have to end there. You can always change your distribution later.
This one to start, or download a couple, you know?
Go to the Renegade Penguin Discord. There you go. Links in bio.
Welcome to CashOS. We, the CashOS developers...
Mastodon actually would be probably better to get answers for that than just straight Twitter. You're probably right there.
Enjoy using CashOS as much as we enjoy building it. The links below will help you get started with your new operating system, so enjoy the experience, and don't hesitate to send us your feedback. The controls on the top work right off the bat. That's a good sign. That's a great sign. Installing packages is definitely one of the biggest
Lemmy, yeah.
Into Linux if you're used to Windows and Mac OS, because there's so many...
Linux for Noobs constantly recommends Fedora, Zorin, Mint, and Catchy. I mean, I could recommend 3 of those 4, totally.
Types of Linux. Let's say you want to install Helium. It's a really cool open source browser. It's based on the Chromium project, which is the base of Google Chrome, but they basically just don't include any of Google's garbage, and it has ad blocking built in. If you're using ad blocking, just allow list my channel or YouTube Premium. This one, honestly, I think will work. If you're trying to install something, I don't know, more complicated, or maybe like a...
I'd be using Brave. Brave is what I'd recommend. Choppy stream, is it just me? It's TikTok.
project, you might end up getting the instructions for, I don't know, how to install it on Ubuntu and Fedora, but nothing for how to install it on an Arch-based distribution like CashOS. And the packages they give you might just not work. It might only be possible to get that application installed by building it from the source code.
Okay, this is another reason why I don't recommend users start with Arch. He's wrong. I'm not trying to be like actually, you have the Arch user repository that you'd be able to grab. But also, even more than that, you have the ability to use Flatpaks. We've talked about Flatpaks quite a bit. So if you go over to, like, say, flathub.org, I'm going to pull this up, all right, over here. So, flathub.org. Okay, so you go to FlatHub over here. Let's just find a random thing that I probably will want to install here. I can remove it later, but give me an app. Look some cheat for it. Go to Twitch. Okay, so let's say here, let's just look for HexChat. Okay, they don't have HexChat. What the hell? Okay, am I that old? All right, let's see. Let's try not to do too much. Here, this will be simple. Okay, so you want to grab this app over here. You can do this one of two ways. So you can totally just copy this command here and open it up in Terminal. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to open the Pop Shop. So we want to get actual budget, okay? This is the app we're looking at. So my Pop Shop is a little bit janky. I did some customizations, but I don't really use Pop Shop, so it's fine. And we can just start looking actual budget. Now, Pop has the Flat Hub built in, integrated right here. So if we look, it's grabbing all the updates. You could actually install it right here by just doing the install button there. So click install. It's probably grabbing it from the Flat Hub there. Ubuntu versus Mint OS or Tail. No, do not use Tail. Tails is an apples and oranges thing, and the most people...
956 is now chilling in the lab.
Thank you for the follow, Meadster. I don't know why everyone that learns about Tails is like, should I use that? No. Like, definitively, the average user should not bother with Tails. If you're trying to browse Tor securely, you use Unix, but that's still an apples and oranges thing. So your argument is really Ubuntu or Mint. Well, they're both based on Debian. I mean, you can use either one. I use Pop! OS, which is a fork of Ubuntu. So, yeah, but you can pick many different choices. You can go with Zorin or whatever else you want. But at the end of the day, don't use Tails in most cases. Like, it's best if you're trying to, go to a different various different computers. But you see, we installed the app over here. This is definitely Flat Hub. How do I know? Because apt package manager would require you to type your password in. So we can totally do this right here. And then if we open up my terminal over here, Flatpak, what is it? Remove? No, it's uninstall. You have all the programs over here. So, there we go. com.actualbudget.actual. So I was right. It's a Flatpak. So if I want to, run this app, as you can see, it's right over here. But as you can see, all of these apps over here, all of these are Flatpaks. Some of these are components that others depend on, like the free desktop, with all these different things over there. But you see, I've got GIMP, I've got the Monero app over there for my cryptocurrency. I've got Simple Scan, which I use for scanning to my HP printer, QBitTorrent, Firefox, Thunderbird, KeePassXC. These are all in Flatpaks. And the way you run Flatpaks is the same on every computer. So if I want to actually remove that app, you see I can do that. And I can uninstall it. Boom. So that's why I would say, you don't install Arch if you're a brand new user, an Arch-based user repo. You still have a lot more basics to understand than going through the basically masochism that he's going through right now. So, yeah. Second right frame. But, what is a good modem? One that works. Have you tried using dial-up? I'm kidding. If you're on cable, Aris modems are what I generally use. But with high split coming out, you're not going to be able to use your modem as much anymore, but they won't be able to charge you anymore because you have to use their equipment. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, Flatpak, definitely a way that you can install apps. You can grab things from Arch using Pacman, which I think Catchy does use, if I'm not mistaken. And then you can use Arch User Repository, or the R, to install things that are not officially maintained by the Arch project. And the Arch User Repository, though, is maintained by individual users. So keep that in mind.
I've heard that Arch has gotten a lot better in recent years for that. And let's see, I mean, they have a lot of popular packages right here that I can just install. I made a list of programs that I use every day, and I really need to see that all of them, or at least most of them, are supported. I think.
Let's see, which ones does he use? It exists. I don't use Sublime Text anymore. I just went to straight VS Code many years ago. I like VS Code actually a little bit more. It's a little bit more extensible. Moonlight Sunshine, don't know what that is. DaVinci Resolve, yeah, that works. OBS, yep, that works. Don't know what Termius is. Cursor, you pay for Cursor? It's really the same shit as VS Code, but they're upcharging you for a lot of things. Helium is whatever Chromium-based browser. We've definitely used LM. So I'm using a lot of these same stuff. What is Termius? I'm just curious about that. Hold on. Ew. It's this. So they do have a Linux client right here. So... Wait, they make you pay for a client? Bro. What does this give you? Like, what does this actually give you? I'm trying to understand here. Help me understand what this does. As to opposed to my regular one. Okay. It's like SSH, SFTP, Telnet. Okay. But you can't even do serial on starter? Boo! Termius is putty? That's essentially what it is? You're paying for this? Look at this. It can't even integrate with AWS, DigitalOcean, Azure, Ansible, all of this stuff out the box. It can't integrate with all that stuff. All of these, just apps you install on the Linux terminal. Why do I need this security stuff? I'm not understanding. It's a terminal. What? So it has some features that you'd probably use more in a business type thing, like the second they talk about SOC 2 Type 2, all that. This seems more of a businessy product. Like, if you're home labbing, you don't need this. Like, seriously, the fact that I'm literally just using straight up bare bones terminal that's pre-installed in the system. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We can do all that in a terminal shell anyway. But he said earlier he was using a Mac. This goes back to my argument I said before that Mac teaches you some really bad habits that you can do a lot better. Now, if you put me on a Mac, I'm going to be using Brew to install a lot of my different things and, you know, installing whatever I need that way through... Yeah, but... Yeah, okay, so we got Termius. What is Moonlight... Moonlight Sunshine. Play your PC games remotely? What? Okay. Says it works on a Raspberry Pi and Linux, so I don't see why not. I have never heard of this. RDP gaming? Weird. Okay. It's a thing, I guess. And then he's got that helium thing. But Cursor, like, we talked about this earlier, like, there's nothing that Cursor seems to offer me that VS Code with GitHub Copilot Pro and GitHub Copilot Pro Plus can do a lot better. What do you think about Arch Linux? Well, I think Arch users need to go and touch grass some more, but, for what he's talking about as an entry-level thing, I think it's a little bit overcomplicated for the average user. I think he's setting himself up for a lot more work. And I wouldn't say necessarily failure, but he's definitely giving himself the hardest path to actually use Linux and understand it. Whereas if he just installed Pop OS, he'd be like, okay, let's go to the Pop shop. I'm just going to pull up all these apps. Okay, so I have Discord, I have Steam, I have OBS, I have DaVinci Resolve, I have LM Studio. So at this point, it would just be, you know, grabbing the rest of those apps there. For the most part, it's that.
And I really need to see that all of them, or at least most of them, are supported. I think I'm liking this Plasma desktop environment. It's nice and snappy. This will start the program. If you don't trust it, click cancel. Continue. Hey, well, that was easy. We got a torrent client. That's important.
The problem is if he's using an app image. Like, I use app images. Do not get me wrong. The problem is, if you notice, when I use Kdenlive, you notice there's two here. One's the Flatpak version, and one's the app image. Well, how you get the Flatpak working, and not the Flatpak, you get the desktop version working, is... Where is it? You go to... No, that's var app. That's where the flat packs are actually stored. Hold on, is it user? Is it config? For the desktop files. This is the good learning lesson for everyone right now. If we use, where are Linux desktop files stored? Okay, user share. Okay. So if we go into user share, they're in a few places. So if you see, we have all these .desktop files over here, right? So what we had to do, I have to remember where I put it. I think I moved it all. Yeah, I didn't put it in there. I put it in, yeah, I moved it into the local folder. That's right, when I did this install, I didn't do that because I was like, I want it to persist beyond reinstall. So we go to the .local folder, which folders are hidden. Have a good night, Just Dev. If we go to share, applications, there we go. So as we see over here, you can see a bunch of my games and stuff that are installed here. Well, that Kden Live app image, I basically had to make this. You don't have to do all that. That's literally, I copied and pasted that for something else. But the main crux of what you actually need is here. Type application, exec icon, all of that. Without that, you then have to go into the folder. So what I tend to do is make an opt folder. It's an old-fashioned thing we do. And then let's say I need to do that, and then I'm going to grab LM Studio here because I still haven't made an icon for it. Well, this is an app image that it launches over here. Okay? So you can totally do that. But then you have to remember, oh, I have to open up this folder and open it up the same way as old-fashioned executable files.
Ew. Yeah, I'll install Handbrake, sure.
I guess this is a good time for us to segue into that you should be using Proton. Their Proton docs and everything don't scroogle you like Google does with everything there. I am affiliated with them. The links are in bio if you do want to use Proton. I use their email, I use their password manager, I use their documents for when I'm managing things online. Yeah, Proton's definitely a better value in my opinion. I don't use Google outside of YouTube. VLC is a great one for
video playing. Whoa, it's cooking. Wow, that installed so fast. I'm used to like APT on Ubuntu or Debian, and it's like just takes its sweet time, but that was pretty quick. Is this just
that has more to do with that you're grabbing dependencies and stuff, because apt works pretty fine for me.
work right off the bat? Let's try it. We do screen capture, pipe wire. I don't know what that is, but sure. Hey, look at that. Okay, I don't have audio. How do I get video acceleration?
I was gonna say, you have an AMD, you don't need to do that. It's built into the Linux kernel.
It was there the whole time.
Now with NVIDIA, you have to install the NVIDIA driver. Stream is way out of sync with audio. Catch you later. What the hell? Is it? I don't know what's up with my stream tonight.
Look at the right thing. Oh, I can look up repositories. We're cooking on this Linux. All right, you're here, boys. There's definitely a lot of packages in here. Wow. Let me try like some other stuff from my list. What about a 10 gig dongle? Is that just gonna work? Dude, it's working. 10 gigabit. Okay. One of the cool things with Linux is that a ton of the drivers for so many different devices are baked into the Linux kernel. For a lot of things, you don't even need to go in and install drivers. They're just there. I mean, Windows has a ton by default, but Windows doesn't have one for this 10 gig dongle by default. Okay, this is going honestly pretty well so far. I've got a web browser installed. I'm gonna have Steam installed.
Technically, you had a web browser pre-installed because you opened something in Firefox.
Hey!
So you had Firefox already pre-installed if you paid attention earlier, which kind of cracks me up because, if you noticed when he installed Helium, he opened up something else and then he still opened up in Firefox.
Yo, Steam's working. Sick! I don't actually play a ton of different
Now
games,
it seems to be synced. I don't know what's going on with the
still
stream.
Problems with anti-cheat in games not supporting Linux properly. If I recall correctly, Faceit for Counter-Strike, their anti-cheat doesn't support Linux. But scrolling through my Steam library, it seems like most of the games are in here. I don't see any that are like super obvious jumping out at me as not allowed. Baldur's Gate is in here. Arc Raiders, they'll all install. Here is maybe a deal breaker thing for me. I gotta be able to video edit on the go. That's why
They'll all install, but they won't necessarily play. You can install games that have anti-cheat, but it won't really tell you until you hit the play button. That's just how it is.
A higher spec laptop, and I normally use DaVinci Resolve. It's really awesome editing suite. We love that stuff. Oh, cool. Wow, they have like all the driver information and whatnot. I'm noticing a distinct lack of DaVinci Resolve launching. We might need to do the terminal install. DaVinci Resolve run.
His problem is he's using an AMD APU.
Let's try to get
Not that AMD APUs are bad, but he needs NVIDIA.
I don't know why there was no prompt to say that it needed Fuse to work. We got DaVinci, baby. There's so much Linux.
Unless DaVinci's changed something.
Not launching. I feel like I'm missing dependencies. Look at that. We're missing libpango. On the Arch Wiki, there's a whole thing on how to fix this specific error we have. Okay, cool. Now will it start? Yes! Success! You know what? I don't actually know how to install a package on Arch. How to install package from AUR. Arch. Uppercase S to do it. Oh, it's building it from source. That's so cool. DaVinci has still not started. I'm having a great time right now. It's been 30 minutes of trying to install.
Not an NVIDIA fanboy, it's just the reality. A lot of the stuff we have is built for NVIDIA.
What it's doing. It just says checking licenses. Use license key. Oh my god, it's working. It seems like if I launch it not from the terminal, it doesn't work. But if I launch it from the terminal, it's fine. This is miserable so far. Boy, I feel like I have lived 100 years in the last 4 hours. It's been most of the software items in my list just downloaded and worked. I've got my text editor. I've got a web browser. Got my SSH.
Here, I'm gonna prove this. DaVinci Resolve on AMD. Oh, so they finally, looks like they finally got it going. But you see, a lot of people, Radeon on Linux for DaVinci Resolve, huge mistake. Some people have finally got it working, but you have to do a whole bunch of, tinkering and all that, whereas it's built for NVIDIA out the box. That's just how it is. Get to work with AMD, works just fine. That wasn't the case for years. 5 years ago when I was using this, I couldn't get it to work on an AMD laptop, period. The fact that they would now work on AMD is honestly a recent development. But the fact of the matter is, I still need NVIDIA for a lot of the LLMs and AI research and tinkering I do. They use CUDA. There's no getting around that. Thoughts on framework laptops? I don't have an issue with them. I just haven't really used them. Haven't seen any reason for me to go get it, but yeah.
And I got my coding stuff. Discord, Steam. Hell, even right now, I installed CachyOS on my desktop. I'll have links to a spec out of my workstation in the description, as well as a link for the framework laptop and, I don't know, MacBook, I guess, if you want one of those after watching this video. As for DaVinci Resolve, it loads. I was able to get a new project created and imported footage into it just fine and did some cutting around and it seemed to be working. However, anytime I tried to load an existing project that, like a finished video, it just crashes. There is a ton of different information on the Arch Wiki on how to like optimize DaVinci, but for now, you're just gonna have to stay tuned for the update video and see if I was even able to get it to work. So get subscribed so you don't miss that. I did have one other major issue. Fusion 360, the CAD program I like to use when I'm designing 3D models and whatnot, it doesn't support Linux. There is supposedly a way to run it with an app called Bottles. It allows running Windows apps in Linux, but I tried that for a good hour.
AutoCAD can be kind of hit or miss with Bottles. I know that for a fact.
Able to get it working consistently. I gotta figure that out. Or I could just play video games for the next month. I'm running a game right now, Borderlands 4, from the output of my desktop upstairs using a GLI Net KVM. And not only am I running Borderlands 4, well, I'm not gonna say well because it's Borderlands 4 and it just doesn't run well, even on a 5090, but it's running and not crashing. But I'm also running Sunshine, a game streaming server, and its companion client, Moonlight, on the Framework Laptop 13 here. So my desktop upstairs is now running Linux. It's streaming a game to the laptop that's running Linux. Oh my God, compiling shaders. I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting the software side of things to be the easy part and the games to be the nightmare, but all of the games I've tried, Overwatch 2, Arc Raiders, Helldivers, Borderlands 4, they all just... What is happening? Is that art?
Yeah, that's been the weird artifacting I've been seeing on Borderlands 4. That stuff, we had to go to, what is it, TSR, TRS? Borderlands just has a weird issue.
Is it just anti-aliasing? Yeah, I don't... But... Is that just the game running like crap? I don't know.
It's the game.
Still be dumpster trash.
It is straight up the game. I had that same issue, as you recall, when we played Borderlands 4 on Linux for DLSS and all that. It was just Borderlands that was giving me issues. You had to move it to TRS, or was it TSR, instead of DLSS for the, was it the frame generation or upscaling or whatever. And that was just a problematic issue. Also, can somebody explain to me why one would want to stream the game like that off a machine if your machine's over in another room? I my brain's not connecting reasons to do that. That's just me. Because I'm like, I'm right here at my desktop. I come to my desktop when I want to use my desktop to do the gaming or the working.
I'm not entirely sure. Borderlands is an important one because I'm doing a Borderlands playthrough with the wife, and if I couldn't play it for a month, I might get murdered. So, holy shit. When I'm playing Overwatch on Windows in the same settings, I get like 400 to 500 FPS. In Linux, 500 FPS! Like 400 to 500 FPS is the same performance I get in Windows. This might even be better. I'm not gonna go like crazy in depth on like...
Now, I will say from my experience, gaming on Linux is at least, even if it's not as high performance, it's smoother performance, if that makes sense, where the lows aren't as low. But yeah, Borderlands 4, that's more of a, you just have to modify your settings. You can't use DLSS and some of the other settings because Borderlands 4 itself is borked on a few things. It's not a Linux issue per se, it's however they did the game. They have not optimized that well.
Stacked performance testing in this video. Stay tuned for the 30-day update. I'll run a bunch of benchmarks in all the games I play in that video, and we'll get to see like really what it was like, and not only just the performance, but also like how stable it was and how reliable this whole setup was. But I'm impressed. Genuinely. Will Battlefield even run? No! Damn it!
I told you, kernel level anti-cheat. It'll let you install the game, but you won't know if it actually runs till you play the game. I only use Moonlight on the go on my phone so I can play away from home. Oh, so you can use it outside your network? Is that what I'm understanding there? Is that the appeal of it? So that I could actually kind of understand. You're doing it over the network, you know, over the internet, when you don't have the hardware to do it. That I can understand. I just couldn't understand what he was saying, like when he's like, oh, my computer's upstairs and I'm doing it down here. Yeah. Opinion on any KVMs? Want to connect my work laptop easily to my to home PC so I can switch back and forth. The there's no KVM in particular that jumps out at me. Most of them are pretty good these days. It's a matter of making sure that it has the features you need because, obviously, if you want high refresh rates, things like that, you're going to need a better KVM. There are HDMI KVMs, things like that. So it's more so about the features that you need with your pass-through than any particular KVM. They're pretty tried and true technology, so I mean, it wouldn't be too bad. Off the top Linux question, got an RX 9070 XT. How do I enable FSR 4? I don't know, but I can't figure it out yet. It should be inside of Linux already, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I haven't really done AMD GPUs in a while. Hold on. Checking. It should be able to just work out the box from what I'm understanding. Okay, so, here's what it is. You need to use a version of Proton that supports it, which is why I use Glorious Egg Rolls Proton. So any of the recent ones should be able to do that. Added FSR 4 upgrade support via Proton FSR upgrade. Auto upgrades from AMD directly. So yeah, you just need to make sure, from my understanding, that you are using the latest Glorious Egg Roll Proton. Then you should be able to get that working. I generally use Glorious Egg Rolls Proton Forks anyway for a lot of my stuff. I just find it works a little bit better, and they have some of the latest drivers, and, well, not drivers, but the compatibility layer stuff on there.
Am I allowed to run a Windows VM on this planet with the automatons? 150 FPS. And not only am I getting that FPS in the game, but I'm also game streaming at 100 megabit to the laptop and recording locally on that machine also with the GPUs. I mean, the 5090 is no joke, but like, I was expecting it to be a lot worse. Maybe this isn't gonna be that bad. Maybe it's gonna be okay. Maybe using Linux is not gonna be the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Never mind, this is horrible. I'm getting my shit rocked, and it's all Linux's fault. Holy shit, there's so many, ow! Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you hit the like button, get some...
That ain't Linux's fault. You just need to get good, son.
Subscribed, and honestly, let me know down in the comments what Linux distro you would use. Did I pick the right one? It seems to be working pretty good for me. Let's just hope that this isn't the worst month of my life.
Try Linux Ernest.
But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting that you're finding a lot of people unironically installing Linux now and moving over to Linux. Overall, I think you're going to see that happen more and more, and I think that's a good thing. I really do. Hold on, I'm sending a message over on Discord. But overall, I mean, even he's like, okay, it'll work pretty well. But I did historically, and I know this from experience, when people are like, when the one person's like, well, you just don't use AMD. I have an AMD and NVIDIA combo laptop here. Most of the time I'm using the AMD APU on this. The Ryzen, what is it, 7 or 8? It's an 8845HS in here. I forget which specific AMD GPU it has built in. It works pretty well. But it also has an NVIDIA 4070 in here. I couldn't get DaVinci to work on this laptop until I turned the NVIDIA GPU on and used it with the NVIDIA GPU. It was just a thing. DaVinci even called out for years. They recommended you using an NVIDIA GPU. So it's not that I'm an NVIDIA fanboy. I would rather go to AMD. I was an ATI fanboy long before I was an NVIDIA fanboy, okay? But the reality is, most of the market builds for NVIDIA. That's just how it is. A lot of my workloads require CUDA. DaVinci, same thing. a lot of the things that I use are optimized for NVENC. It's unfortunately the reality of it. Can anyone give me options? I currently game stream with Parsec, but want to switch to Linux. I don't know what Parsec is. Never heard of it. What's up, poppers? What's up, dickhead? Come here. Come here, dickhead. Where's that good boy? Where's that good boy? Here's that good dog. You're a good boy? Yeah, what is Parsec? I'm gonna have to look that up. What is Parsec? Parsec Gaming, connect to worker games from anywhere. So apparently that's pretty similar to what they were talking about, which is Sunshine, Moonlight, which let you do it remotely, which he was showing in that video over there. But Parsec looks like they have a Linux version too. So, looks like it should be fine for you. Yeah, someone tested how far Moonlight program can connect to... They got their friend playing a video game from England to the USA. Now, what's the latency like when you do something like that? Laptop runs Pop! OS great, but I haven't found game streaming server software that works on Linux. There's a lot of different things. We were just seeing there's Sunshine, there's Parsec. I mean, literally, go to Parsec. It literally has it on their app. But yeah, let me pull this up. I'll show you. Loving the beard. Thank you. But yeah, look. If you go right to Parsec's website, look at that. Download Parsec. Download for Linux. And it looks like, yeah, they give you a Debian file. So it'll install straight on Pop! OS. Looks like they have it straight up for Ubuntu types. Parsec is like Moonlight. Okay. I don't use any of these things. Yeah, but Parsec doesn't have host on Linux, only receive? Oh. Type that weird. Okay. Okay, I don't know. I don't do this. The honest truth is, the only time I really game is when I'm gaming on stream. Otherwise, I'm mostly doing projects and stuff like that. I'm just not that interested in gaming on the go. Maybe one of these days I'll get a Steam Deck and actually use it with all the time I'll be flying to different conferences and everything one day. We'll see. But even when I'm flying and all that, I like to put together my little projects and all that. But, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Linux client, not server. Oh, then I don't know. I haven't really done anything like that. Maybe somebody in the Renegade Penguin Discord actually knows about that. Which, is a good time to say, it's getting a little late, guys, but you definitely should be following on all of my socials, and of course the Discord and Matrix server. We have the links in bio for all of you. I'm on YouTube primarily these days, but I also stream to Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, as well as TikTok. And I'm on TikTok, and Blue Sky, and Mastodon, and we also have the Discord and the Matrix, as I said. But, yeah. I may be back on for a stream tomorrow. We shall see. I've been kicking butt in my classes, but we'll see how the streaming schedule keeps up with everything. I think I may be adjusting, adding another day to the streaming and all that so that we can do more gaming on Linux. But next stream officially is for Wednesday. If I'm not on stream tomorrow, I know we got to catch up on a lot of different content inside of the videos here. I'm going to probably be skipping through a lot of these different videos in the review on stream. Maybe Sunday I'll try to get on earlier than usual. But yeah, so tomorrow I may be on stream. Wednesday is the definite next stream that we have scheduled. that'll be a gaming on Linux night for Wednesday. But yeah, thank you all for joining me. I love all of you. And as always, stay safe and happy hacking. There was like no latency at all when like the button press is instant. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. But I will see y'all later. Stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch. But I will see you maybe tomorrow, but definitely Wednesday.